Thank you, brother.
Sure. I'll set that laptop up.
Oh,
Where did Council President go?
okay, June 17th, 2020, calling to order Committee of the Whole. Madam Clerk, would you please call the roll?
Kelly. Bishop. Brancatelli.
Here.
Cleveland. Conwell. Griffin. Hairston.
Here.
Johnson. Bashir Jones. Joe Jones. Hazy.
Present.
McCormick. Mooney.
Here.
Polinsky. Santana.
Present.
Sly.
Present.
Zone.
Present.
Mr. Chairman, you have a quorum.
Thank you very much, Madam Clerk. Let me go through my my spiel on the virtual meetings and open meeting law. This Committee of the Whole is being held during the COVID-19 emergency declaration in accordance with Ohio's open meeting laws as amended by Sub-House Bill 197. This meeting is being held via Zoom platform, is being live streamed on YouTube and Cleveland's Channel 20. In accordance with Ohio's open meetings law as amended by Sub-House Bill 197, notice of this committee hearing was publicly posted. Something I would like everyone to be aware of that we're gonna do a little bit differently is, and we're gonna say, I know there's been some, the mute issue. You're going to unmute yourselves today, and we're gonna see how this goes. So the clerk will be able to mute, but you can't unmute all. So everybody's gonna need to unmute themselves. I know we can do it. That's our challenge for the day. Okay, today we'll be taking our votes as we normally do. I'm not going to call the roll on every piece. It's going to be without objection. And if you're voting no, please let me know. It's going to be without objection on these pieces. But please express your no vote if there's a piece that you do not want to recommend out of this Committee of the Whole. For those that are planning, as we normally do these summer or end of session meetings, I'm going to go with the lightest load to the heaviest. So for directors that are watching for your planning purposes, I'm going to do finance, port control, planning, safety. Wait, is that clear? Yes, planning, safety, community development, economic development, capital projects, health, public works, and public utilities. So that is the order we'll be going in today. And with that, I'm going to begin with finance, and it is an ordinance that is requested under suspension. It is ordinance number 509-2020 by Councilmember Kelly by departmental request. An emergency ordinance affirming that funds from the county Corona Relief Distribution Fund will be expended only to cover costs of the city of Cleveland, Ohio, consistent with requirements of section 5001 of the CARES Act as described in 42 USC 801D and any applicable regulations as is necessary pursuant to HB 481 before receiving said funds and declaring an emergency. So who would like to take this one from finance?
That's me, Sharon.
How you doing?
I'm wonderful. How are you guys doing?
Great, thank you.
Good.
Tell us about 509-20.
Okay, so what this is that there was a second stimulus package that actually is coming from the federal level through the state of Ohio and I believe through the county. If you recall, the first stimulus package eliminated any city that did not have a population over 500,000. So this was a second attempt to get directly to cities. And so in this stimulus package number 2 under CARES, they made some provision for some cost recovery for I'm sorry, hold on. Andre, close this door. Your thing is too loud. Close that. Thank you. Okay, they made some provision for cost recovery, which was not in the first, I'm sorry, look at Zone's laughing at me. They made some provision for cost recovery, which was a little broader, made us eligible under the 500,000, allowed us to recover some salaries and costs associated with COVID-19. And it required that we pass this kind of standardized piece of legislation in order to receive. The amount is based on the local government fund, and it's supposed to be 110% of the LGF. So they did publish a list of anticipated disbursements to cities, and Cleveland was on for 31 million. Of course, our caution is that the state doesn't, bother our normal local government fund distribution, so that this can be like of extra money to us. But there was a requirement for immediate disbursement that we pass this ordinance, and that was from the county so that they could relieve the money immediately. And so that's why we have this piece.
Thank you, Chief. Is this requirement, is it the county's requirement, or is this a federal requirement or state?
It was apparently a requirement from the feds, and I believe at the state level, they tweaked it a bit, but it is a requirement of the grantee that we have this ordinance on our books, because all the cities are passing them that are on that list.
Okay, and again, this is just affirming that the funds we receive are going to be to cover costs as described in the CARES Act. So this will all be
Yes, we took-
COVID related.
That's correct. We took their language, exactly their language on this one. Because we have 2 or 3 different ordinances related
Yes.
to COVID and all this, but this
Yes,
one, we took their exact language.
Okay. Questions, comments on ordinance number 509, 2020? Let me just see if I can get this hand raising thing up. Okay, hearing none, ordinance number 509, 2020 will be, Councilman Brancatelli.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Quick question to the chief. So this is paying for some of the protocols that we're doing now, where we're doing testing as people are coming into the council, providing masks and some of the COVID related items as part of that structure.
Yes, the language that accompanied it, this CARES Act said that we could recover salary, cost, PPE, and then like the building kind of restructuring that we have to do for the space, that we could recover this from here. So if we redirected our health department employees because of COVID, if we redirected them away from their normal assignment, there's some possibility for recovery through this act, along with, as you said, PPE, any protective gear, mask, the plexiglass stuff, the social distancing, all of that, we should be able to recover from this grant. And you
So
have
do we
to
have a
expend it. You got to expend it by October 25th, has to be expended. And if you haven't expended it, you have to return the difference by December.
I'm sure Director Cox will figure out how to spend the money. So does this, do we have a plan for putting in some of those protective shields now as we're going through our different spaces?
So MoCap and Chief Brown have engaged several firms to supplement his existing engineering staff. And they are currently working in City Hall, and then they will be doing all the public buildings. You're going to be getting a piece from them that asks for permission to buy plexiglass, modular, smaller little bitty furniture so that we can put people 6 apart and all of that. And they're doing City Hall first, and then I think other public buildings, along with DPU, will be doing the same examination at the airport that's currently required, and the port control.
Okay, great. And in the interim, as we're working our way towards opening towards the public, will this help us in our plan? We're currently open 5 hours a day, Tuesday, Wednesday, to start allowing more employees to the same essential workers to come in, only more days other than just Tuesday and Wednesdays.
So we're anticipating that with the work that they're doing and what they'll be installing, along with some departments kind of have the spatial thing already, that we would start returning people back to work beginning the first week in July. And we're hoping for compliance, substantial compliance by the first week in August. That's the timeline.
Okay, I mean, that's helpful. I mean, I'm looking at Director Ebersol, and, you know, just by virtue of his layout, he's socially distanced from his employees
Exactly.
because they have cabinets and fixtures, not because he doesn't like his employees. And, you know, with, you know, the great work you guys are doing, over 100 new contracts coming on for ED assistants, and now with the assistants for the downtown businesses, you know, having them there to move those contracts. I'm just advocating. I see what community development, economic development, and other departments like license and assessment and others. Well, you can't really do distancing and license and assessment. There's a lot of staff down there.
Yes.
And-
For
and-
little
and-
tiny cubicles.
Yeah. So this is helpful to hear that we potentially could be bringing some folks back the first week of July.
Yes.
This gives us some confidence as we're talking to our businesses saying, hang tight, these are
Yes.
coming. Thank you,
and
Chief, and thank you,
Councilman-
Mr. Chairman.
And Councilman, let me be honest with you, some people are kind of already sneaking in on sort of on Thursday and working a little more, but we're still officially closed on Tuesday.
All right, thank you.
Okay, if there are no further questions or comments, ordinance number 509, 2020 will be considered by the full council this afternoon. Thank you, Chief.
Thank
Now gonna
you.
move to port control. This is an ordinance that's requested for passage under suspension. This is ordinance number 512, 2020. Councilmembers Cleveland and Kelly by departmental request. An emergency ordinance to determine the method of making public improvements of rehabilitating and repairing runway 6R24L at Cleveland Hopkins International Airport, and authorizing the Director of Port Control to enter into one or more public improvement contracts for the making of the improvement. Director.
Chair and members of the committee, thank you. The Department of Port Control has the opportunity to take advantage of $4.25 million supplemental funding for the FAA for airfield improvement. Our 6 right, 2-4 left runway is our oldest existing runway with a lot of work. We're already in the planning of doing evaluation on full reconstruction, redevelopment. When this money came up, we have a short timeline to respond to FAA with our application. For this, we asked for permission to go ahead for the public improvements to extend the life until that bigger project can be done, and to take advantage of the 4.25 for FAA funding.
Okay, so this isn't accept and receive, or excuse me, apply and accept legislation. It's just, this authorizes the actual improvement.
Well, what we have to do is advertise, bid it. And
Okay.
once we get the bids back in, we submit our application, which is due August 1 to FAA. And then we have access to the funding and would issue the contract.
Okay, great.
This is
Councilman
just to get the application, the bids to support the application.
Great, thank you. Councilman Cleveland, do you have comments on, are you supportive of ordinance number 512, 2020? Have you been briefed on this?
Yes, I have been briefed, Mr. President, and understanding the timing issue, I fully support this and ask my colleagues to pass this under suspension at the council meeting.
Thank you, Councilwoman. Are there further questions on ordinance number 512, 2020? Hearing none, ordinance number 512, 2020 will be considered by the full council tonight. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee.
Thank
Have
you,
a good
Director.
day.
Thank you. Okay, I'm now going to move to planning. I have ordinance number 411, 2019 as amended. Councilmember Griffin, an emergency ordinance establishing a moratorium on the review and issuance of zoning permits, certificates of occupancy, and other license or permit applications for small box discount stores. This ordinance has been amended pretty substantially. I would refer you to the email with the legislation that went around. It defines small box. You know what? I'm just going to read it. In the title, line 2, strike review and second amendment. Strike the first, second, third, and fourth whereas clauses in their entirety. Insert. Whereas small box discount stores means a retail store between 3,000 and 15,000 square feet that sells directly to consumers a limited assortment of physical goods, products, or merchandise, personal grooming and health products, household goods, and other consumer products, including food or beverages for off-premise consumption, most of which are sold for $10 or less. That does not dedicate at least 15% of shelf space to fresh food and produce. Whereas small box discount as defined do not include stores that dedicate less than 5% of shelf space to food sales, sells gasoline, diesel fuel, or contain a prescription pharmacy. And whereas the city of Cleveland desires to foster business to improve access to healthy diet by selling fresh, affordable food and produce, protect neighborhood economic vitality, ensuring diversity of business with sufficient opportunities for independent owners. And whereas there is a proliferation of small box discount stores in the city of Cleveland, and small box discount stores continue to announce plans to expand in urban areas where they cater to low and middle income customers looking for discounted goods. Amendment 3, strike the 6th whereas clause in its entirety. Amendment 4, in the existing 7th whereas clause, strike usually less than 15% and insert no or very little shelf space. 5, strike the existing 12th whereas clause in its entirety. 6, in the existing 13th whereas clause, strike line 3 in its entirety and insert on the issuance of certain zoning appeals, certificates of occupancy and other licenses. And finally, 7, strike 1 in its entirety and insert section 1 that was notwithstanding as exception of any of the provisions of codified ordinance Cleveland, Ohio, 1976. And for reasons stated, this council establishes a moratorium on the issuance of zoning permits, certificates of occupancy and other license, permit applications to establish small box discount stores and as a new use until November 1, 2020, or until such a time as city has established regulations regarding review and issuance of small box retail discount stores, whichever is earlier. Small box discount means retail stores. Well, we already did that one. Okay. So I just want to read that because this is probably the most significant thing we'll do today. Well, I shouldn't say that. This is something that's been under review for a long time. I'd like to get comments from planning and then go to Councilman Griffin. Anybody? Nobody from planning is here. Well, I'm not going to read that again. So we're going to go forward. Is Councilman Griffin with us? Okay. Okay, I'll make my comments.
I could add if you'd like, Mr. Chairman.
All right, well, let me hit a few things and I'll go to you, Councilman. So this was heard and recommended for passage by DPS yesterday. Let me just kind of state that this is basically hitting the pause button on these things. Doing a moratorium is not the best legislative tool that we have as municipal government, but there is a larger, like a more comprehensive scheme that's being developed by planning, with consultation of the council to come up with how do we properly regulate these types of stores. This basically gives us a little bit of breathing room until November, but it also sets the clock ticking. It puts a deadline where we have to get our ordinance in order. And I just want to make the point that we have met with the operators of the small box discount stores. A number of us have been in various meetings. This is not something that they weren't aware of, but we met with them sometime in the winter and conditions just haven't improved. Like things have not gotten better. So I am going to be supportive of 41119 as amended. Councilman Brancatelli?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and I concur. I think the opportunities were provided. There are some very good providers. I mean, there are some very good small box discount stores. At the same time, there are a number of them that have been problematic in our communities. And I look forward as we craft some good legislation that really sets some standards that we all can be proud of. So thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you very much. Councilman Mike Polensek.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. I too concur with you and Councilman Brancatelli. There has not been much improvement. And not only am I concerned about the operation, but I'm also concerned about the cleanliness, the fit and finish. They just do not maintain these structures, and they're outside areas, their parking lots, their grass area. They're very unsightly, and these are major corporations, and I can't understand for the life of me why they cannot maintain their property. So I concur, and I look forward to being in more serious discussions with them as we get into the fall, because something's got to give here. They are a detriment as they are presently run in our neighborhoods. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councilman Plunzick. Councilman Joe Jones, and you have to unmute yourself, Councilman.
Thank you, Mr. President. I agree with you and what has been assessed at this point. As you know, I've been suffering with Family Dollar in my neighborhood for quite some time. And now Family Dollar is talking about having one of our establishments already has beer and wine. And we have another establishment a couple more that has applied for it in my neighborhood. And so, Mr. Chairman, when we talk about these stores, other than Family Dollar and Dollar General, who else would be included in this?
Everybody that meets the definition, and I want to be cautious about naming names.
Okay.
If this isn't targeted at any one business, if they meet that definition of between 3,000, 15,000 square foot, that's who it applies to. And again, it is a moratorium while more comprehensive legislation is crafted.
I have no unreadiness, Mr. President.
Great. Thank you, Councilman. Are there any further questions on 4/11/2019 as amended? So I don't see any hands up. I'm just gonna, nobody in this business can speak for anybody else, but I know that Councilman Griffin is very supportive. I've had multiple conversations, and I'm quite confident the sponsor would like this to move forward. So if there are no further questions, comments, ordinance number 4/11/19 as amended stands approved. Thank you. Thank you, planning. We're now going to move to public safety. Do we have somebody for public safety? John, are you going to be handling all public safety?
I believe the acting safety director is supposed to be on,
All right.
but I can answer questions related to the 2 grants.
So I'm gonna go to community development. If there's somebody from community development, yeah, okay. So I'm gonna go to community development. We'll come back when the assistant director gets here.
Okay.
Okay. So moving to community development, I have 3 ordinances for consideration. They are 447, 448, and 449. We begin with 447. Ordinance number 447, 2020, Councilmembers Brancatelli and Kelly by departmental request. An emergency ordinance to amend sections 1 and 3 of ordinance number 176, 2020, passed February 24, 2020, relating to grants from the United States Department of Housing and Urban Development for the PY 2020 under Title I of the Housing and Community Development Act of 1974, and for the 2020 Federal Home Investment Partnership Act program, Emergency Solutions Grant Program, and Housing Opportunities for Persons with AIDS program. Mr. Reckers?
Yes, good morning, Council President and members of the council. This is the same legislation that went before the council back in February with the budget hearings. Since then, we have received our formal notification of the amounts to be funded under these grants. And the amendment is really just to make sure that those estimated amounts that you worked on are now accurately reflect what the city is actually going to be getting. We're not proposing any changes to the budgets. We did get a little bit more money in some of these programs, and we're going to be applying those to our existing programs that were presented to the council. We asked for your approval today. If there's any questions on this, I'm happy to answer them.
Certainly. So this is just a nearly identical ordinance to what we did in February, and the changes are this: do we got more money?
Yes, we always work off of estimates in order to get the process going. And now that we have our formal announcements, we are including those amounts, and nothing else is really changing from a programmatic perspective.
I would direct my colleagues to the actual legislation. The changes are all pretty, there's nothing that is shocking to this. For example, homeless services is going from 623 to 672. CDBG support's going from 1.3 to 1.4 million. So there's no great big increase or decreases to any one program. Councilman Brancatelli.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Yeah, this is a minor adjustment, and I just want to thank the community development team for one, having such a good estimate that they were working off of, that we aren't making cuts, but we're actually adding in some of these categories, and ask my colleagues to support this.
Great, thank you. Are there questions on 447, 2020? Councilman Joe Jones. Please unmute yourself. That's the new.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I appreciate you. I have asked for information from the police department,
This is not
and
related to police.
one of the specific pieces of information I've asked for was a breakdown of how many minorities are in the police department.
I'm going to interrupt you for
I have
just a
not. No, I just let me finish my statement. I won't last long. It's on this issue. And so I have not received that information. And so I told Mr. Chairman Zone, because he's so rude in his meetings, that I would be a no vote on any anything that relates to the police department. So I have a no vote.
Councilman,
register me as a no vote on any police legislation in his committee, as well as anything that you're looking to pass today, until the police start being honest and open and give me the information that I requested as a member of this council and the only voice for my people, because you don't have another forum for them to speak other than through me at this table. Until I get that information, Mr. President, I will be a no vote on anything dealing with police. And I just wanted to make sure that you understand that and we're clear on that. Thank you.
Are you hearing me, Councilman?
No, I didn't. Didn't hear you.
Okay, we're not on police. We're not on safety. We're on community development, and this is a grant that we've already dealt with, dealing with housing opportunities for persons with AIDS, the home investment program. So I don't know.
Well, I'm for that, Mr. President.
Okay, well, it's good to listen.
Okay, yes, I did. I thought you said something about safety. So thank you, Mr. President.
If there are no further questions, ordinance number 447, 2020 stands approved. Councilman Matt Zone?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Since my name was invoked, I felt a need to just respond. A detailed memo was sent out yesterday by myself requesting the items that Councilman Jones just referenced. I would encourage not only Councilman Jones, but all my colleagues that that I try to treat people equally and fairly. I operate by the rules of council, Robert's rules, and that you have to honor those ways so we can have a good facilitated meeting. But the communication went out, and we'll get that information to Councilman Jones.
Thank you. Ordinance number 448, 2020. Councilmembers Brancatelli and Kelly by departmental request. An emergency ordinance authorizing Director of Community Development to exercise a second option to renew contract number CT 8006 PS 2018-129 with Cyber Ridge LLC to implement a loan servicing system and community development tracking and reporting system.
Council President, this is Director Maness. I apologize for my computer issues a few minutes ago. Matt Rosing will provide our accounting manager just a 1-minute overview, and then if there are questions, he'd be happy to take them.
Thank you. Mr. Rosing?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman, committee. This is our second option of the CyberRidge software that handles our loan portfolio, which is currently roughly about 4,000 loans and about $200 million. And we have been kind of over the last 5 years trying to get back into the 21st century with this, and finally have. And we're very happy with this system, and it really gets us to be able to talk with our loan clients, which are basically citizens of the city of Cleveland, in a real-time kind of setting, instead of having to be in the office, which is a really good thing at this juncture where we are. So we're happy with it, and we think for the price, it's a great system.
Thank you. And what is the length of the contract?
So, Mr. Chairman, the ordinance states that after this one, the Director of Community Development has the opportunity to extend yearly options. So basically they're 1 years. This is the last time technically that we'd have to go through council.
Sure. So is it one of the 2-year contract with 2 options, the first of which requires additional legislative authority?
Right, so it was initially a 2-year. The Department of Community Development had the option to extend the first one. We would have to go back to council to get that second option. So this is actually asking us to go into our 3rd year with Cyber Ridge.
Perfect. And you're happy with them?
Very happy, yes, thank you.
Very happy. Thank you. Councilman Brancatelli?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I fully support this and appreciate the work they're doing and really raising the technology within that department.
Further questions, comments on ordinance number 448, 2020? Hearing none, ordinance number 448, 2020 stands approved. Thank you. Hey, ordinance number excuse me. Okay, love these Zoom meetings. Ordinance number 449, 2020, Councilmembers Brancatelli and Kelly by departmental request. An emergency ordinance authorizing Director of Community Development to administer the Community Engagement Healthy Home Initiative to enter into 1 or more contracts with various community development corporations for the purpose of hiring community engagement specialists by neighborhood to improve the quality of life for residents of the city's housing stock, to enter into professional service contract for acquisition of software and training to conduct the initiative, and to make purchase of materials, equipment, supplies, and services needed to conduct the initiative. Director.
Thank you. So you'll remember that we started this program just about a year ago, but actually brought staff on in the spring of 2019. Nina Holzer, the manager, has then deployed the program and hired the staff that's in the CDCs that really all just started at the end of last year and into the beginning of this year. So I'll give Nina an opportunity to share with you a little bit about the program and then explain the renewal.
Great. Thank you, Director. Good morning. So again, this legislation allows us to continue the Community Engagement Healthy Homes Initiative and renew our contracts with community development corporations. Briefly, our Healthy Homes Initiative is a partnership, again, between the city and community development corporations that seeks to improve the quality of life of residents through enhancements to our city's housing stock. Currently, we have 14 community engagement specialists that are working across the city. Their work involves collecting property condition data, assessing neighborhood housing issues, and working with residents and landlords to resolve those housing and quality of life issues and concerns. And then finally, again, the specialists support the Department of Community Development by helping to administer the exterior paint program. They market the program, deliver and help residents complete applications, and then also provide relevant inspections. So they're working very comprehensively across our neighborhoods, and I'm happy to share some data around our accomplishments or since January, or answer any questions you may have about the program.
Thank you. I'm going to defer to Councilman Brancatelli on ordinance number 449, 2020.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thoroughly reviewed this, approved it through DPS committee. Want to thank Nina and her team at the community development. They've been doing a great job out in our community, and it's been a wonderful asset to see, especially during this time of need in our neighborhood. So I'll fully support this and ask my colleagues to.
Okay. Further questions on ordinance number 449, 2020. Councilman Brian Casey.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Chairman, Director Manise or Ms. Holzer, can you just update us real quick on where we are with the paint program this year? There's been some rumors that it's a little behind schedule, and if you could just update us on when that will be fully in, when it's going to start.
Sure. So through the council president to the councilman, there were over 900 applications for the paint program. Right now, residents are aware of whether they were awarded funds, and the community engagement specialists are out doing all of the inspections. Like everything with COVID, we have been delayed, right? We were right at the point where the application process had closed, and we were reviewing applications and sending letters out when we went to 2 days. We've had a lot of support from the city in terms of being remote working. And so I think we've largely caught up. There are huge packets of things printed outside my office here that are getting mailed with instructions and vouchers now. So we're getting caught up, but there is no question we were behind. And Nina could probably provide a few more details because it's her team that's out there doing the inspections and getting residents started.
Sure. So over the last, since April 28th, the community engagement specialists have been out providing those initial inspections. To date, I just checked this morning, 567 inspections have been conducted. And these are the inspections that are required in order for a resident to get their voucher. I believe that a couple hundred vouchers have already gone out. So residents, there should be a couple hundred residents who have received those vouchers that are reaching out to Sherwin-Williams to get their paint. I had a specialist tell me just yesterday that she saw a couple of residents in Detroit Shoreway already painting. And then as Director Maness mentioned, there are a couple hundred more packets of vouchers going out this week. So residents should be starting to get those vouchers and getting their paint so they can begin painting.
And Mr. Chairman, or Mr. President, to Ms. Holzer, is there a deadline where all this has to be done by for receiving the vouchers or having the paint done?
So my understanding is that the paint program for this program year runs through October, though in speaking with the paint program manager, from my understanding, that date is flexible and may be pushed into November if needed.
All right, thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you very much. Councilman Joe Jones.
Thank you, Mr. President. To the director, I'm really excited about the fact that, we got the paint program up and running. I know when I got on the council, we didn't have the paint program, and how over 14, 15 years ago, how special the paint program was for Clevelanders. And so I'm excited about the fact that you've got it started. And my question is that the city started full swing in this program. Was it this year or was it last year, Mr. Chairman, to the director?
So through the president to the councilman, it's this year. The funds were approved, and so this was sorry, let me clarify that. The program was in the 2019 budget. So we started to take applications in November of 2019. So this is the first year that people can paint, but it was approved in the 19 budget. My apologies.
I see. And so when will the program, because that's been a problem with a lot of residents as well as local development corporations, really not knowing some of them not knowing the deadlines for the paint program. When does it actually start on an annual basis? Given the fact that we have the COVID virus, I understand, but when do you open the program up and when do you close the program?
Well, so our goal is actually not to open and close it, right? To have things be ongoing. So there are applications from this year that we will likely hit our limit and will not be able to fulfill, even though it's been encouraging to see that the voucher amounts that people have asked for are less than we had anticipated. So I think we're going to be able to serve more residents. So those applications from this year will roll over, right? So people don't have to reapply. So we appreciate the fact that the program was funded for this 2020 year, and we will start with applications that weren't able to be fulfilled for this year, and then open new applications likely in October.
Okay, so the season starts from October to October?
Yeah, I mean, I think that sequencing has worked well because it allows us to really evaluate applications really up until the point that it's not generally feasible in Cleveland to paint for that year.
Right, I see. So then they have not applied for a voucher before October. After October, they won't. Well, how does that work?
Well, through the council president to the councilman, again, we put the October date out there to finish painting, largely to try to deal with Cleveland's weather, but if people are completing jobs and are able to get things done into November and December, we're not going to prevent them from doing so. We just have tried to put some parameters around it so that our residents are successful. We're not.
Who's the person, director, is actually running the program, and what is their extension?
So Tina Scott is the manager of the paint program. I don't off the top of my head have her extension, but I'm happy to send it to you.
I appreciate it. And Mr. Chairman, to the director, this is such a worthy program and needy program. I really appreciate your leadership on being able to work to make it accessible again to all Clevelanders. So I really appreciate the administration making this a priority. And I also thank my colleagues who started the initiatives back in play again. And that was Mr. Anthony Brancatelli, who is the chairman of the Committee of Community Development. So I really appreciate your efforts, his efforts, and the president of City Council. Thank you all. No further questions, Mr. President.
Thank you, Councilman Jones. Councilman Casey, are you good? Your hand is still up. Okay. Are there any further questions on ordinance number 449, 2020? Councilwoman Jasmine Santana. You have to unmute yourself today. Can you unmute? You have to unmute yourself.
I did it, the challenge. Good morning, everyone. Thank you, Mr. Chair. I really appreciate this program. A lot of my residents are taking advantage of it. Just a few questions that I have, and this, I'm not sure if this is for Nina or for Director Menez. Can you provide a report of the residents that were approved, maybe per ward? Because I had a lot of visits last year, and I know we try to help, we help them with the application. I'm not sure how many of them were approved.
Sure. Through the chair to the councilwoman, we actually did provide a list of residents per ward. It was just last week, though, to Councilman Brancatelli. So we'll make sure that we get that back out again, because with the remote environment, it's understandable it may have not gotten to you.
Okay, that's fine, and I could get with him to get that information. Another thing, Director, as you know, I serve a lot of Latinos, and I'm just wondering, is that application available in Spanish? And is there a Spanish community engagement worker that is navigating them through that process?
Okay, I could answer that question through the council president to the councilwoman. I believe that we do have a staff member in community development who was Spanish speaking and helping folks as they were applying and getting their applications in. And we do have a community engagement specialist who is Spanish speaking and able to help walk folks through those applications as well.
What's this person's name?
The community engagement specialist?
Yes.
Her name is Bridget Kent Marquez.
Okay.
And I'm happy to send you her contact information.
I'm sure she's fairly busy and getting flooded with calls, because my office is also getting a lot of calls, requesting information about the paint program. And it just seems to be a little bit confusing and challenging. It goes to my next question to Director. How challenging has it been, just not having the application available online versus the hard copy? Has that also delayed the process, and are you guys getting less applicants due to that? Due to it not being available online?
So to the councilman through the chair, so we got over 900 applications. So I think all of you and others have done a really great job getting the word out. I'm just hesitant because of what you said about it not being available online. It was available. It wasn't initially available on the city's website. There was a thought that people, regardless, I think that was a bad call, but now it is available online. I think now we've taken it down because the program is full for this year. But I'll verify that. And I will say that any time you're launching a new program, there are hiccups, and we've had our share. I think overall, and considering the environment, it's gone quite well. But we've learned a lot from this year, and will apply those lessons learned into next. And we would appreciate feedback from your constituents and from your experiences, because we'll improve the program with that input. So, it actually makes me think, as we close or slow down a little bit and have a moment to catch our breath in the fall, we'll put out a survey or some other means to collect information easily from all of you on how the program went, what you're hearing from your constituents, but we'd also just welcome, direct feedback if you have it.
Thank you, Director. And just my last question, and then I'll close. So you know how the inspector visits, residents, and they get violations for any type of chip paint. Are the inspectors educated that they will link that resident straight to that paint program? Do they give them that, they provide that information? Because that was resident, this was feedback from residents. Like if the inspector came in, they gave me they cited me for chip paint. However, I did not know about this paint program. So, they're just kind of scrambling around looking for money to paint their house and then not knowing that this program was available. I guess my question is the inspector aware that this program exists, and do they have the pamphlets or resources to give it to that resident?
Through the council president to the councilwoman, I just want to clarify, by inspector, are we speaking about building and housing inspectors or the community engagement specialists?
In housing. So residents have, just been out, they got cited for chip paint, and then have found out later on that there's a paint program available. And so I guess I'm wondering, how are they connecting?
Through the council president to the councilwoman, I am not 100% sure if I could answer on behalf of building and housing. I'm fairly certain that Director Donald is aware of the program, but I'm not sure of the education of the inspectors, unfortunately.
And so to the councilwoman through the chair, that's a really good connection point. I mean, clearly Director Donald is aware, but we know there's a big difference between that and then really training inspectors to make those connections and have the information they need. So we'll close that loop for next year. I wouldn't be confident in saying that we did for this. That's a great suggestion.
Director, I'll yield back.
Thank you, Councilwoman. If there are no further questions, ordinance number 449, 2020 stands approved. I see Director Howard's in the house. And we're going to move back to, wait, hang on a second. We're going to put safety. Okay. Reverting back to public safety. We have 3 ordinances, 482, 483, 484. Ordinance number 482, 2020, Councilmember Zoni Kelly by departmental request. An emergency ordinance authorizing Director of Public Safety to enter into an agreement with Cuyahoga County Solid Waste District to accept funding in support of the Department of Public Safety's Environmental Crimes Task Force for purposes including but not limited to the purchase of equipment, clothing, and for overtime necessary to assist in combating illegal dumping. Acting Director Howard.
I'm here. I'm here.
Down? Can
you hear me?
We can hear you.
Okay.
Do you want me to come back to you?
Could you?
Yeah. All right.
Thank you.
We're going to punch public safety for a little bit.
Yes.
Moving to economic development. I have 4 ordinances to be considered. Beginning with ordinance number 286, 2020. Councilmembers McCormick, Brancatelli, and Kelly by departmental request. An emergency ordinance authorizing Director of Economic Development to enter into tax increment financing agreement with the Sherwin-Williams Company or its designee to provide assistance to fund the construction of a new global headquarters to be located at Public Square West on the corner of Superior Avenue and West 6th Street, to provide for payments to Cleveland Municipal School District, and to declare certain improvements to real property to be a public purpose. Director?
Great, thank you, Mr. Chairman. This legislation finishes the loop on the other three ordinances that we passed at the end of March for the retention of Sherwin-Williams in downtown Cleveland. This is the second piece of legislation necessary to implement a non-school TIF for the project site. Just as a refresh, Sherwin-Williams will build about 1 million square foot headquarters located on the lots between Superior and St. Clair, West 3rd and West 6th, and then across West 3rd on that vacant parking lot there on Public Square itself. The result will be to retain a little bit more than 3,100 jobs, over $8.6 million in annual income tax revenue, as well as the creation of an additional 140 jobs once their consolidation is completed. We've continued to work with them over the past few months virtually. They're still working on pulling their project together and moving forward, and we're excited to see it happen and get into the ground.
Great. So this is the first ordinance was the chain of title, and this is the actual TIF. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. And this is the same. Nothing has changed in terms of the ordinance or the intention of Sherwin-Williams. Everything is moving forward.
Correct.
Thank you. Councilman Tony Brancatelli on ordinance number 286, 2020 as amended.
Great to see we're getting this piece done and looking forward to this project moving forward.
Great. Questions, comments on ordinance number 286, 2020 as amended? Councilman Joe Jones. Okay, you have to unmute yourself, Councilman.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So accustomed to the old way of what we were doing a couple of days ago. When it's all said and done with, Mr. Chairman, to the director, how much is this total overall project? Or are we still, I know we have an amount on the table. What is that totality at this point?
So to the councilman, the previous ordinances authorized a $13.5 million grant to support the construction of the project, a performance-based income tax based job creation credit for up to $11.5 million. And then this piece authorizes the non-school TIF for the project.
Okay. And then how much is that? The TIF?
Yeah, well, the TIF will be dependent upon what the taxable valuation of the building is. The non-school portion is roughly 40% of what the property taxes wind up being.
And this is for a period of how long?
30 years.
No further questions, Mr. President.
Thanks, Councilman. Further questions on ordinance number 286, 2020 as amended? Hearing none and seeing no hands, ordinance number 286, 2020 as amended stands approved. Ordinance number 460, 2020, council members Bashir, Jones, Brancatelli, and Kelly by departmental request. An emergency ordinance authorizing the mayor and the Commissioner of Purchasing Supplies to acquire and reconvey properties presently owned by the Experian Group Limited or its designee located 1301 Euclid for the purpose of entering into the chain of title prior to the adoption of tax increment financing legislation authorized under section 5709.41 of the revised code. Director?
Great, thank you. So this piece is the first piece that authorizes the entry into a chain of title as precedent to a non-school TIF for the redevelopment of the property at 3101 Euclid Avenue. This is a new group that we're working with. It's the group's led by Lemma Getachew and Gwinnett Indlade. And so it's nice to be working with the new group in Cleveland, though they have worked throughout the area for about 20 years now. This project will, speaking of 20 years, this building's been vacant about 20 years. It's a 88,000 square foot building. It's been fully gutted. And so the proposed redevelopment will convert the building to a 91 unit building. as well as some first floor retail space. And and they started it earlier this year. Project should be ready to be occupied by this fall. All told, this is a $26 million project funded in large part by a chemical bank mortgage, a significant federal and state historic tax credit provision as well. And so we think this TIF is going to gets it across the finish line, and look forward to seeing the building get open here and continue the build out along Euclid Avenue.
Great. Thank you, Director. I'd like to hear from the chair, then the local council person. I'm with Councilman Tony Brancatelli.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thoroughly reviewed at the Development Planning Sustainability Committee and approved. Urge my colleagues to support.
Thank you. I'd like to hear from Councilman Bashir Jones, Ward 7 Councilman.
Thank you, Mr. President. It's definitely something that I support. I do have a stipulation. This group also has property that I signed off on East 90th, and I haven't seen any progress at all. I mean, absolutely no progress besides some, some windows being taken out. And I've been reaching out to them. I'm not happy with them at all. I'm appreciative because they're a minority company. So I definitely want to see that happening. But for them to take on this project, and I haven't seen any progress on the last project, I am kind of skeptical. So, Mr. President, is it possible that this passes with some stipulations?
So we could amend, but my caution would be we can't necessarily tie one to the other as a stipulation. But what I would ask the director is there any harm in holding this for 2 weeks while we have different conversations to try to figure out what's happening with the other property that Councilman Jones is referencing?
So what I would suggest, if it's all right, is since this is the first piece of the TIF and just authorizes the chain of title, we can hold off on the second piece that authorizes the TIF, and I'll connect with the councilman. And I can't update him on the progress on 90th Street as well, and we can get that cleared up before we move forward with the second piece on the TIF, if that's all right.
Does that make sense, Councilman?
Yes, sir. Thank you, Director.
Sure.
Okay, so I just want to make sure your Councilman Jones I understand your intentions. We're going to pass this chain of title, but we're not going to move on the actual TIF until your concerns are resolved. Is that okay?
I guess my question, Mr. President, is, I'm for progress, but I'm just kind of concerned. I'm kind of concerned that, okay, they go into this and they have ownership in this new property, but they haven't done anything with the ownership of their previous property. So, and I know the gentleman has been kind of sick, so I know that he's been under the weather, but there just hasn't been any communication. I believe Chairman to the Director, I believe that Tracy Nichols is on this. Is that who's helping out with this project?
Not with this project, but with the other project.
Yes. So I just been reaching out. So if you feel, Mr. President and Director, that that this will get us moving on the previous project, I have no issue with progress, but I don't want to stand in the way of any progress. But I'm just very concerned that I haven't seen any progress on the last one. So if you feel that this would be of benefit in letting this one go, then I'm okay with it.
So, Councilman, I'm going to suggest that that's probably a good path, because like we just did with Sherwin-Williams, entering the chain of title is more paper transaction. No, before the city really grants anything significant, we've got to get past this chain of title. But I can commit to you that I won't let anything pass beyond this until you give me the go-ahead.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. President. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Councilman Joe Jones. Same as before. We need you to unmute.
Thank you. Mr. President, to the Director, what is the name of the group?
The group is called the Inspirian Group.
No further questions, Mr. President.
Thank you. If there are no further questions, ordinance number 460, 2020 stands approved. Ordinance number Ordinance number 463, 2020. Councilmembers McCormick, Brancatelli, and Kelly by departmental request. An emergency ordinance authorizing the mayor and the Commissioner of Purchase and Supplies to acquire and reconvey properties presently owned by Sustainable Community Associates or its designee located at 2410 Scranton Road for the purpose of entering into chain of title prior to the adoption of tax increment financing legislation authorized under section 5709.41 of the revised code.
Mr. Chairman, if you want to read 464 as well, they're companion pieces.
Companion pieces, certainly. All right, so let me read 464. Ordinance number 464, 2020. Council members McCormick, Brancatelli, and Kelly by departmental request. An emergency ordinance authorizing the Director of Economic Development to enter into contract with Sustainable Community Associates or its designee to provide economic development assistance to support the development of the Lincoln Building project and other associated costs necessary to redevelop the property. Director?
Thank you. And before I start, I have an amendment that the law department has put together that just makes a correction to the legal description on 463. So I'd like if that could be introduced and
Do you have a copy of it, or do we have a copy of it?
Yeah, it's in law. I think the clerk's got it, but what it does is add permanent parcel numbers 004, 05, 007, and 008, and then it lists out the legal descriptions.
Okay, if I'm going to ask you then to state the amendment, then I'm going to ask for a motion and a second because we don't have it in front of us.
Sure. In section 1, after the legal description, insert the following 2 legal descriptions. Parcel 1, situated in the city of Cleveland, county of Cuyahoga, and state of Ohio, and known as being sublot 12 in Kellogg subdivision of part of original Brooklyn Township. Lot number 87 is shown by the recorded plat in volume 3 of maps, page 20 of Cuyahoga County records, and being 40 feet front on the easterly side of West 17th Street, formerly Petroleum Street, and extending back of equal width 125 feet to an alley in the rear. As appears by said plat, be the same more or less, but subject to all legal highways. PPN number 0040507. Parcel 2, situated in the city of Cleveland, county of Cuyahoga, and state of Ohio, and known as being sublot 13 in Alfred Kellogg subdivision as part of original Brooklyn Township. Lot number 87 is shown by the recorded plat in volume 3 of maps, page 20 of county records, and being 40 feet front on the easterly side of West 17th Street and extending back of equal width 125 feet to an alley in the rear as appears by said plat, be the same more or less, but subject to all legal highways. Permanent parcel number 0040508.
Thank you. Can I get a motion to amend the legislation?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Seconded, Mr. President.
Is there any objection to the amendment just read by the director? Okay. Thank you. Councilman Brancatelli, I'd like to hear from you, and then I'd like to the local council person.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Fully support 463 and 464. This is a pretty exciting project, a pretty significant project. We thoroughly reviewed it at DPS and asked my colleagues to support.
Thank you. Councilman Kerry McCormick.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Briefly, I'll just second what Councilman Brancatelli just said. This was reviewed in DPS, and it's a great project. And a part of Tremont, they went through our community process with our neighborhood residents and block clubs, in which this project was supported out of there. The developer is also participating with the neighborhood on a local fund that we've set up to help community members that need assistance with minor home repairs in the immediate area, as well as with some neighborhood signage that was requested by the neighborhood. And they also have a level of kind of mid-level workforce housing in this project as well. So appreciate the developer and their willingness to work with our neighborhood and with the neighborhood residents as well in our block club.
Thank you, Councilman. My only question, I had a brief conversation with Councilman McCormick, and I just don't know if we know the answer. I don't know if Director, if you would know the answer to this. Do they use prevailing wage on their projects?
I don't know off the top of my head, but I certainly can find out.
Okay. And I'm not suggesting we hold it because of that, but it's just good to know. And we can have further conversations about that offline. Any further questions on ordinances 463, 2020, 464, 2020? Hearing none, ordinance numbers 463, 2020 and 464, 2020 as amended, stand approved. Thank you. Director, I believe that's everything for you.
That's it. Thanks.
Very good. All right. And I don't see, I do see, Acting Director Howard, are you ready?
I am.
Okay. So we're gonna go back to safety. We have three pieces. Ordinance number 42, 2020, council members Zone and Kelly by departmental request, an emergency ordinance authorizing Director of Public Safety to enter an agreement with Cuyahoga County Solid Waste District to accept funding in support of the Department of Public Safety's Environmental Crime Task Force for the purposes, including but not limited to the purchase of equipment, clothing, and overtime necessary to assist in combating illegal dumping. Director.
Thank you, Council President. Councilman, through the President, Ordinance Ordinance number 482-2020. If passed by council, will authorize the Director of Public Safety to enter into an agreement with the Cuyahoga County Solid Waste District to accept funding in support of the city's Environmental Crimes Task Force. These funds will be used for training and equipment purchases. The Environmental Crimes Task Force is comprised of the City of Cleveland Departments of Public Safety, Public Health, Building and Housing, Law, and others working collaboratively to combat illegal dumping in the city. Cuyahoga County's Solid Waste District has authorized funding in an amount not to exceed $18,740 to the city's Department of Public Safety to provide financial support for the task force to address the problem of illegal dumping within the city in 2020. This legislation is important because its funding will assist in the city's fight against illegal dumping and provide necessary training and equipment to the Environmental Crimes Task Force. Just for some statistics for 2019, 173 complaints were received for open dumping, 48 for theft, 3 for B&E theft, that's breaking and entering theft, 3 hazmat complaints, and 7 other, for a total of 234 complaints in 2019. Case investigation results resulted in 179 cleanups, 55 felony indictments, 23 vehicles towed, 20 misdemeanor indictments, 11 search warrants, 10 citations, 5 felony arrests, 13 felony convictions, 5 misdemeanor convictions, and 1 misdemeanor arrest. The budget breakdown would be $15,200 that would go towards personnel, which is a detective and supervisor overtime, $1,200 for clothing for our task force officers, $2,340 for contracts, which brings that to $18,740. There's no local match requirement here. This funding will defray the city's costs for this task force and support the hard work and the results that I've just enumerated that the task force provides.
Thank you, Director. And tell me what is the relationship of the solid waste district?
I'm sorry?
This is entering an agreement with the solid waste district. What is that relationship like? Can you just describe that briefly?
So is that DC O'Neill? Jolene, are you there? Okay. So just a point of clarification. I thought she would be able to do it better, but it's the collaboration of someone has to, once the report is made, someone has to go out and ensure that it's picked up, and that's the solid waste district is help manage the disposal of the items that are picked up. Law enforcement enforces it legally by making the arrest and following through with the prosecution, but the actual pickup and disposal is done through the county solid waste district.
Thank you. Councilman Zone, this was heard and recommended for passage by the Committee on Public Safety. Comments on 482-2020.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This is one of the actually bright spots of this department. Many of us have seen illegal or experienced illegal dumping across our city. most notably in the Collinwood neighborhood, which bordered East Cleveland, that big dump. They were successful in going after individuals. This grant will allow that activity to continue and hopefully grow. Fully support this legislation. Ask my colleagues to support it as well.
Thank you so much, Councilman. Councilman Joe Jones.
Mr. Chairman, as you are looking, Mr. Chairman, to the director, as you are looking at illegal dumping happening throughout the city of Cleveland, where would you say you see the most of it happening?
I think that because of with COVID, we've seen an increase. There's a significant amount of dumping that occurs on the east side of Cleveland. Particularly, we have it at dumping at schools, dumping in alleyways, dumping in lightly used roadways. Those are the places that we pay particular attention to.
And Mr. Chairman, to the director, do we have any kind of safety cameras or anything like that in areas where we are constantly getting slammed, that we could put safety cameras in those locations?
We do have some cameras up around the city. I don't have that number in front of me, but there are recommendations have been made to schools, for example, that are having issues with folks dumping on school property, which has increased because of COVID. When cameras have been placed in those areas that tend to help solve the issue and use
Director, I would like to, work with you on putting some legislation together, as relates to upping the penalties on illegal dumping in the city of Cleveland. Now, this has been an issue for me day one on getting back into public office, and I've brought this, to the attention of anyone who would listen. And it's so bad in our community. As fast as I can pick up illegal dumping on one side of my neighborhood, I'm picking it up somewhere else. I'm exhausted. I've spent my own personal money because, unfortunately, city, in some instances, the department that's supposed to pick up our dumping debris have been very slow in doing so. And so I've had to spend my own personal money to pick up some of these dumps. And I've had to spend my own time. I'm even doing it now as we speak. I just did it a couple of days ago. So I'm very frustrated at the fact that we got so much illegal dumping. What is the possibility that we could put together a program, Mr. Chairman, to the director, where we charge $10,000 or a $5,000 fine on illegal dumping, and $2,500 of which could be used for those people who catch the illegal dumpers, and that'd be their reward, and the other $2,500 can go to the department for cleaning it up. What are the possibilities of doing something like that? And then we can look at some other variables too. But that's how upset I am about this illegal dumping. And I know that other cities have very stringent laws on the books. What can we do to tighten up our existing law? And then what is the penalty currently if you catch someone illegally dumping, Mr. President, to the director?
Just before I go to the director, we can't create state causes of action, and we can, the misdemeanor, the Ohio Revised Code limits penalties for misdemeanors to $1,000 and 6 months in jail. So going up to 10,000, we don't have the authority to do that. But I'll let Acting Director Howard take the remainder of the questions related to what we can do. Director?
So first, to add to the cameras, we have mobile cameras, Councilman, through the president, to be moved around as well to target problem areas. It can range from misdemeanor to a felony. I think that what would be very helpful is that when these cases come in front of the courts, it often comes in front of the court. There's no one from the community there. It's the prosecutor, defense attorney, the defendant. We have the law enforcement officer. But if the outrage of this illegal dumping would be voiced at sentencing, it would also make the court aware how personal it is to you, councilmen, and to the community, which would help encourage more stringent sentencing on the high end of even where we are now.
Mr. Chairman, to the director, I look forward to sitting down with you, seeing what we can do to craft something that's a little bit more stricter than what is in place right now, because I don't know if it's a lack of police visibility in the east side of the city of Cleveland, and the reason why there's so much dumping over there versus the west side. Why is that, Mr. Chairman, to the director?
Chairman, to the councilman, that I will have to look into and get more information to you. I don't want to be reckless without having the data in front of me, but I will get that for you, councilman.
And that's important because the citizens deserve to have a clean city. They deserve to have a city where we don't have our abandoned and vacant lots 4, 5, 6 feet tall every year, year in, year out. And then people coming in and out of other neighborhoods into our community and illegally dumping because they know they can do it and get away with it. And so I think we need to really do whatever we can to stop this and then start putting some real fundamental actions in place. And when the police are dealing with illegal dumping, if they are called to assign, if they're called to an assignment where there's illegal dumping in the progress, do they arrest these people or do they give them tickets and fines? How does that work?
Director?
Councilman, through the chair. So if they get there and there is no one there, they conduct an investigation to see if they can locate the perpetrator. If the person is there, it all depends on the interaction. They may issue a citation and they may effectuate an arrest, but that's done on a case-by-case basis.
And Mr. Chairman, and I don't want to get into it any longer because I've had 2 incidences where I've had to deal with the police, where I've caught illegal dumping going on in my neighborhood, and I've called the police, and while I was en route to catching the perpetrator, and I just didn't like the way they were handling the situation, and so I just think that if they're caught in the act, we should give them a citation or some kind of ticket to send them to court, and that's some smack on the hand kind of fine. So we're going to even have to, Mr. Chairman, to the director, if you and I can sit down and talk about the process, how it works, so we can tighten it up because it's pretty loose. And that's the reason why they're dumping, and they're constantly dumping in our neighborhoods, and they're doing it because they know that they can do it, and then whatever small fee or fine they pay, that's it. So I'm really concerned about this, and I think that as a city, we should have a strong, firm statement to the entire planet that if you come over here in our city and you dump your garbage, there's consequences, and we haven't done that yet. And that's the reason why we're in the conditions right now where we got illegal dumping all over the place on the east side of the city of Cleveland, particularly in Ward 1. So I need your help, Director, and I look forward to sitting down with you to talk about this issue. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councilman. Councilman Bashir Jones?
Thank you, Mr. President. I want to make something clear. The media and some papers have said that I'm voting no on safety legislation solely because I have not received information from the administration. And that's not true. Acting Director Howard has gotten me information that I need. The reason why I've chosen to vote no, even though these are very important legislation that has been brought up, but what's most important to me is that we have a plan for diversity and diversifying the safety forces, police, fire, and EMS. I've yet to hear a serious plan around diversity, or even a plan to say in a year or 2 or 3 or 4, we hope to be at this place. That's the reason why I am saying no to every piece of legislation until and I'm sure our chairman, Zone, is doing a great job, is also pushing this, and our council president is pushing this as well. But that's the reason why. So I just wanted to clarify that. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you very much, Councilman. Appreciate your comments. Councilman Mike Polensek.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I wholeheartedly support the legislation. It was council who had lobbied for years to get the specialized detail or unit to deal with the illegal dumping, because we've had this problem just growing and growing and growing, and it's been indicated by the acting director that as a result of COVID-19 and the lack of bulk pickup for the last 2 months plus has really exasperated the whole issue. We're seeing, couches and mattresses thrown on empty lots and abandoned homes. So we have got a major problem out there, especially on the city's east side. And obviously the administration is going to have, I predict it's going to take at least a month to pick up all these illegal items. But as you've indicated, the acting director, there were 173 complaints that came in. And what I'd like to know, if you can provide to us, broken down by ward, where those complaints have come from, because especially those of us on the east side where we have these old industrial areas or areas that are what we call out of the beaten path, that seems to be the areas that we're getting the greatest amount of illegal dumping. And then on top of it, those of us that are on the edge wards, the outer edge of the city, we also experience illegal dumping coming in from suburban communities, because in many suburban communities, they charge for certain items to be picked up. So we see that as well. So I'd like to know where the hot spots are across the city. And then again, as we stressed in the safety committee, we need really to have more of the mobile cameras placed in these areas we're experiencing. It's outrageous to see the amount of debris that has been deposited in our neighborhoods illegally. Not only is it from the standpoint of appearance, it's a health issue, it's a quality of life issue, it's about environmental justice. And so I can't stress enough to the administration the importance of ramping this up from a standpoint of additional trail cams, remote cameras, beefing it up to follow up more, because right now you have Sergeant Ezzo working the unit. But whatever we need to do, I can't stress, this is about sending a message, as you've heard, sending a message that this is not going to be tolerated in our city. And it's gone on. We've made improvements. There's no doubt that we've made some headway, but we're not where we need to be at this point. So again, Mr. Chairman, I'm here to support the legislation, but I'm also requesting through the chair that we have those areas that, quote unquote, in each of our communities, we're experiencing those hotspots. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Councilman Polensek. Councilman Kevin Bishop.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Chairman, I just want to.
We lost your audio.
Pardon me?
We lost your audio for a quick second. If you'd start over, I'm sorry.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Yeah, I just want to take a brief moment to echo my colleagues, Councilman Polensek and Councilman Jones's outrage as far as this illegal dumping and the seriousness. My neighborhood is getting pummeled with illegal dumping. And I just want to say to the director through the chair, to the director, that please, can you notify me as to when the cases from my community is up before the courts, so I can be there to represent and just to show the perpetrators just how outrageous this is and how it's damaging our community. So I really, really want to be at those hearings and those meetings with these illegal dumpers. And I want to be in with you, Councilman Joe Jones, as far as finding ways we can strengthen and coming down and cracking down on these perpetrators who's decimating our community with all this crazy debris.
It's like, how many times are we going to ask?
Thank you very much, Councilman. Councilwoman Jasmine Santana.
diversity if people don't sign up? I mean, don't go.
Okay, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Chair. So I'll be brief. Everyone's kind of touched on some things that I was going to mention, but illegal dumping, I serve a West Side ward, and Ward 14 is absolutely has a huge problem with illegal dumping. As you know, the transfer station is right down the street. So once trucks are turned away, what they do is just go and dump in the stockyard area. So I spend a lot of resources picking up this debris just because the city can't address it right away. There's a lot of alleys in the stockyard area. So there's a lot of residents that can't access their property or their garages because there's, the amount of debris that is left there. And so early on, as when I was elected, knowing that this was a huge issue, I proposed installation of cameras in the transfer station. So possibly, they can match the debris of all the trucks that are, turned away. And I just really want to advocate and propose that because we could try it out. It could be a mobile camera, but I am confident that those trucks that are being turned away are the ones dumping in my neighborhood. And so just, think about that and hopefully, you could support that. And we'll see, we'll see if that legal dumping goes down and we could capture more of these, illegal dumpers. And then lastly, I just want to talk to, through the chair for Director Howard. Do you believe that we have the capacity in terms of staff to tackle the illegal dumping issue?
Through the chair, that is something that I will have to look into. As you know, I'm acting director right now, but I will look into the staffing levels and get back to you. But I can tell you that I know that due attention is being paid to dumping throughout the city. And as Councilman Polensek has stated, there's been an increase because of COVID and bulk pickup being suspended, which is now reinstated. Hopefully we can get back to the low levels that were, levels pre-COVID, levels pre bulk pickup suspension, and address it the attention it deserves.
Yeah, all right. Thank you, Director. Mr. Chair, if we could just be a little bit more creative to tackle this issue, because once again, I mean, it's affecting our kids' health, and it's a big problem in our city. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councilwoman. Councilman Jones, I don't know if your hand is up from before. All right, if you could be brief, because we've had one bite at the apple. Councilman?
Right. Mr. Bashir Jones' comment in terms of the news coverage of the no vote for me was a no vote for not getting the information. I'm pleased to know that the chairman is working with the safety chief to get that information. And also it's a no vote. I'm in total agreement with Bashir Jones because we've been dealing with the diversity issue here in the city of Cleveland for the last 100 years, and we still haven't gotten anywhere. And so then the third issue is I welcome my colleagues. Let's work together. Let's look at ways and means we can introduce legislation to really handle this. I want to work with you, Mr. Howard, to talk about, and I think my colleague Jasmine Santana brought up a good issue as it relates to, do we have the staffing? And so certainly I want to work with you, work with the city, because we shouldn't be sitting here. We got the biggest budget we've ever had for the last 3 years. And we should not be sitting here facing this kind of issue of illegal dumping and how it has had a negative impact on our citizens. And lastly, though the COVID virus has been here, it has been consistent since day one entering into public office in the Lee Harvey Ward 1 as council person in 2018. And even though we got the COVID virus, I'm still slammed the same level it was when I first stepped into office. So I really need some relief here. I hope the administration is listening. This is a major issue and it's going to become a political one. And so it's my hope that we can resolve this issue. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilman. Before you sign off, for the sake of time, because we have a lot of legislation in front of us, do you want to be recorded no on 42, 83, and 84?
That's correct. That's correct.
That's all I need.
Yes.
Thank you. Yes or no?
Thank
you. If there are no further questions, Ordinance 482, 2020 stands approved. If the clerk would please note the 2 no votes on 482, 2020. Ordinance number 483, 2020. Councilmember Zoning Kelly by departmental request, an emergency ordinance to amend section 393.05 of the codified ordinances of Cleveland, Ohio, 1976, as amended by ordinance number 2704B83 passed March 4th, 1985, related to hazard determination and communication program. Director? Director Howard?
Thank you, Chair. Ordinance 483-2020, if passed by council, will amend codified ordinance section 393.05 to correct the phone number listed for the Fire Prevention Bureau of the Cleveland Fire Department. The phone number currently listed is 216-621-1230, and the correct number is 216-664-6664.
So the essence of ordinance number 483, 2020 is to change the phone number?
Yes, Councilman. Yes, Chair.
Councilman Zone.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, that's all it does is change the phone number and needed legislative authority to do it. It was passed by the Safety Committee. I asked my colleagues to support the name change of the firefighter's phone number.
Thank you. I don't see any hands or I don't see anybody waving. So if there are no further questions, ordinance number 483, 2020 stands approved. Please note the no votes. Ordinance number 484, 2020, Councilmember Zoning Kelly by departmental request, an emergency ordinance authorizing Director of Public Safety to apply for and accept a grant from the Ohio Office of Criminal Justice Services for the FY19 State Burn Memorial Justice Assistance Grant for the operation of the Northern Ohio Law Enforcement Task Force, and authorizing Director to enter into agreements with various municipalities, government agencies needed to implement the grant. Director? Oh, you're not.
Thank you. Ordinance 484-2020, if passed by council, would authorize the Director of Public Safety to apply for and accept a $75,000 grant from the Ohio Office of Criminal Justice Services for the fiscal year 2019 State Burn Memorial Grant. This legislation will provide funding for the operation of the Northern Ohio Law Enforcement Task Force. The goal of the Ohio Office of Criminal Justice Services Justice Assistance Grant is to provide funding to law enforcement agencies for operating multi-agency task forces. The City of Cleveland will be reimbursed for costs associated with operating the Division of Police's Northern Ohio Law Enforcement Task Force. This task force is a multi-agency drug task force that brings together state, federal, and local agents and investigators to ensure the most sophisticated investigation and prosecution resources are directed against organized drug trafficking groups. Our task force partners include, of course, the Cleveland Division of Police, the FBI, the IRS, Greater Cleveland Regional Transit Authority Police Department, Ohio BCI, Ohio Adult Parole Authority, CMHA Police Department, Coward County Sheriff's Department, the police departments of Bedford, Lakewood, and Moreland Hills. A few statistics with regard to the operation of the task force for 2019. There were 75 new cases in 2019, 40 non-federal indictments, 11 wiretap cases, 52 firearms seized, 6.6 pounds of fentanyl and heroin seized, $1,565,500 of U.S. currency was seized, 57 search warrants, 68 federal indictments, which is significant, 47 federal arrests, roundup arrests, 22 pounds of cocaine and 23 pounds of methamphetamine. The expenses to be reimbursed include $19,984 for police overtime, $20,000 for police overtime for other agencies, our partners that I previously listed, $5,000 in travel costs, $24,400 in buy money and surveillance cost, $5,000 for equipment maintenance and repair, $616 for office supplies. That's a total of $75,000. The grant period is from January 1, 2020 to December 31st, 2020. We received this grant annually since 2005, and there are no local match requirements.
Great. Thank you. And this is an ordinance that, This program's been with us for a long time. Is that accurate, Director?
Yes, since 2005.
Okay, it's always it used to be not Commander Connolly who used to head this up, I believe, and used to come, and it was really impressive the amount of work that they did with this. So is there any significant changes over last year's budget or anything notable?
No, Council, no, Chair.
Okay, so I'd like to go to Councilman Zone and then open for questions. We begin with Councilman Conwell. I believe I inadvertently missed him on the last one. So I'll begin with Councilman Zone, then Conwell. Councilman?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'll be brief. Just like air pollution doesn't stop at a municipal border, nor does drug trafficking. Safety Committee members will remember last year we had an extensive briefing with the whole entire task force that came to the committee with representatives from the regional task forces, along with the former officer who was in charge of this, Commander Connolly, as Council President said. This has been a highly successful program, and I'd ask my colleagues to support this ordinance.
Thank you very much, Councilman. Councilman Conwell, I apologize if your hand was up. Somehow I didn't have it on my screen. So
can you hear me?
Now I can hear you. Yes.
Okay. This was for the last one. I just want to caution or give an alert to my colleagues. Mr. President, I was walking through Councilmember Mike Polinsik ward, and they were cleaning up in his ward with illegal dumping. But you know what, Mr. President and Mr. Councilmember Mike Polinsik, they had no list. So the guy was just wandering around looking for illegal dumping. I think if we have someone to ride our neighborhood, or if we end up riding a neighborhood, like I'm going to do Friday, and then we send a list over to Director Michael Cox, it will be more efficient. Because they're going to just hit our wards, maybe do 4 or 5 illegal dumpings. And this is a huge problem, Mr. President. So we need to get a list and we give it to Director Michael Cox. And that's all I wanted to say about that.
Okay, thank you. And Director, if you could circle back with the councilman and let him know what the process is as we go forward. Councilman Blaine Griffin. And you have to unmute yourself today, Councilman.
Got it. All right. Thank you, Mr. President. Just a couple of things. And I heard you say that it was 75 indictments to the from the chair to the safety director. Is that correct?
It was 75, Councilman through the chair, was 75 cases. 40 were non-federal indictments, 68 federal indictments.
68 federal indictments. That's huge. And it's interesting because we used to hear about those indictments, and I'm not sure, have they been like a specific sweep in the area? Have they been, I don't usually say the word gangs, but are they group member involved individuals? Are they in specific areas? There's usually a backstory, and we really haven't seen
that. Councilman through the chair, I don't have the information with regard to these individual indictments. My experience with the Department of Justice is that maybe some groups, there may be some individual, but I don't have information on the individual indictments from the federal government or the county, which would be the non-federal indictments.
Okay. All right, I'd be interested in that because, you know, if it was on Buckeye or if it was Kinsman or wherever, it'd be good to know if there was like a major bust or sweep or something happening over there to see if some of those things tie in. But I know that, you know, those things are disclosed to us when we come. The probation department. The probation department has a different set of guidelines than the police department do. How do you have interagency MOUs that help everybody run in the different lanes that they have? For example, probation, anybody that's on probation, they can do unannounced visits and search a house. Police can't do that because they have search warrants. How do this group deal with MOUs or interdepartmental, you know, agreements?
Well, I don't have that information in front of me, but I can get that to you. But what I can tell you is that there is a difference between, you know, law enforcement. For example, you talked about warrants and searches. Probation is an administrative process. It's an administrative portion of what has been handled criminally. So when someone enters into probation, there are terms and conditions that they agree to enter into probation. One of those terms is that a probation officer can show up at the house unannounced to make sure that the probationee is in compliance. So that's not a part of a criminal investigation. That's more of a checkup to make sure that they are in compliance with the terms of their probation.
Reason I mentioned that, I'm sorry. Go ahead. Sorry. Go ahead.
So the probation officers and the law enforcement partners, there are times that they may work closely together, but there are different requirements under the law and constitutionally for law enforcement investigation as for with warrants and with the probation officer making unannounced appearances.
The reason I asked that question, Mr. Chairman, to Safety Director is because I think there's a pro side to this that we should invest more into this kind of a unit because it helps the the law enforcement agencies communicate with each other. A lot of statistics show that many of the violent offenders are repeat offenders. Therefore, they're on probation or some kind of PRC, post rehabilitation control. And what I would like to see is a better utilization of these departments communicating with each other and looking at how we can beef that up, because if they're most violent crime about somebody who already committed it, then we already know where they're at or where they're supposed to be, what they're supposed to be doing, and could keep better track of them. So I would hope that this unit would be the one to accomplish that. Now the con side, and the reason I asked about MOUs, Mr. President, is because are they trained in the same use of force policies? Most other agencies, and a lot of people don't know this, our use of force policy is about 15 to 17 pages. A suburban district or one of these other areas might have a use of force policy that might only be 2 or 3 pages. So how do we make sure that there's cross training and those kind of MOUs so that when they're going out affecting, doing warrants and other things, that they're basically abiding by what we expect in the city of Cleveland? To the chair, to Safety Director Howard.
Is DC, I'm not a law enforcement officer. My background is prosecution. Is DC O'Neill still on?
No.
Yes, I'm still on. To the chair, to the councilman, when we develop MOUs, at least with the MOUs in the city of Cleveland, they are all required to follow our use of force policies. We've given them the ability to train on them. I will check on some of these agencies. Some of them do not fall within the city of Cleveland, so I'll have to check those MOUs, sir.
Yeah, like Moreland Hills and a couple of those other guys, they probably, their MOU, their use of force policy is nowhere near as extensive as ours. And that's something that my colleagues need to notice, is that some of the rigorous MOUs and some of the policies that we have in place, a lot of these suburban police departments don't even come close to having. So just wanted to note that, Mr. Chair, that I support this legislation. And I do want to see if it might benefit us to beef it up, because I'm interested in how many people are on PRC or probation, in order that we could really identify those folks and make sure that not only are we looking at law enforcement issues with them, but also how we can be helpful with them and making sure that they get acclimated into the community and get good jobs and access to the services they need. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you very much, Councilman Griffin. Seeing no further questions, ordinance number 484, 2020 stands approved. Thank you all very much. Moving to capital projects. So we have capital, health, public works, and public utilities in that order to get through. Ordinance number 25, 2020. Councilors McCormick, Cleveland, Bashir, Jones, Johnson, Brancatelli, and Kelly by departmental request. An emergency ordinance to amend section 508.03 and 508.04 of the codified ordinances of Cleveland, Ohio, 1976, as amended by various ordinances related to the application for permits and permit fees for the duration for temporary sidewalk occupancy permits for vending devices in the central business district. All right, Rick, are you taking this one?
No, Mr. Chairman, this is Director.
I'm sorry, I didn't see it. Director Sprons.
Yeah, so
Mr. Chairman, members of the committee, the purpose of this legislation implement a random selection process when issuing temporary sidewalk occupancy permits for vending devices, which is the hot dog vendors primarily. And so this will allow for us to do a randomized process of issuing the permits, which is much needed, and it'll allow for a fair distribution of the permits, for that process to occur.
Thank you. Councilman Ken Johnson, this was approved by Committee on Municipal Service and Property. Are you supportive of 25-2020? Said yes. We go to Councilman Brancatelli. This was approved by and recommended for passage by Committee on Development, Planning, Sustainability. Are you supportive of 25-2020?
Heard and reviewed at my committee and fully supportive. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilman Johnson, are you supportive of 25-2020? We'll go with it. Councilman Bashir Jones, much of this in Ward, some of this in Ward 7. Is this something you're supportive of, Councilman?
Sir. Yes, sir.
Thank you. And Councilman Kerry McCormick?
No objection, Mr. Chair.
Councilman Cleveland?
No objection.
If there are no further questions, ordinance number 25-2020 stands approved. Ordinance number 317-2020, Councilmembers McCormick, Johnson, and Kelly by departmental request. An emergency ordinance authorizing Director of Capital Projects to enter into one or more agreements with the Northeast Ohio Regional Sewer District regarding road, drainage, and sewer improvements on Literary Road from University Road to West 3rd Street under their combined sewer overflow project, authorizing any agreement necessary to complete their work and to cause payment of the city's share of the improvement. Director.
Council President, members of the committee, this is a Northeast Ohio Regional Combined Sewer Project that'll be partially constructed on Literary Road. The reconstruction of Literary Road is a $600,000 project. $250,000 is the city of Cleveland's local share, and then the sewer district will be picking up the cost for the remaining reconstruction of Literary Road. That's $350,000. And the construction is underway at this time. And this is about Literary Road from University to West 3rd. It's approximately 500 feet in length, and it will install all new asphalt wearing course, curbs, walks, as needed, new driveway aprons, and so forth for reconstruction of the road.
Right, thank you. And this was heard and recommended for approval by Committee on Municipal Service and Properties. Councilman Johnson, is this a 317-20 we're supportive of? Councilman Kerry McCormick.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I support this piece of legislation. I've just actually got one follow-up, and I believe I sent an email on this. Through the chair to the director, West 5th Street is going to be repaved this year, which connects to Literary. And then Literary is getting repaved through the sewer district project. The question is, from what I understood with my call at the sewer district, Mr. Chairman, to the director, there is a very small section on Literary before you hit West 5th that was not part of the scope of either project. And it seems silly to just leave that small section unpaved with the other sections on Literary and 5th being paved this year. So the question is, and again, I'll look it up. I believe I did send an email on this. The question is can we incorporate the small section on Literary before it intersects with West 5th in one of the two paving plans, whether it be city streets or with the sewer district project?
Yeah, through the chair to Councilman McCormick, that's correct. Yeah, we did receive your email request. We're currently reviewing that and back to you as soon as we can, hopefully this week or next week. So I know the field crews went out to look at that section.
Oh, good. So they are, I appreciate that. Yeah, so if you please just follow up with me on that. Again, just, if we've got the opportunity and the equipment out there, You know, it makes sense not just to leave a small section between the intersection unpaved. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Councilman. Further questions, comments on ordinance number 317, 2020? Seeing none, ordinance number 317, 2020 stands approved. Ordinance number 318, 2020. Councilmembers Harrison, Conwell, Johnson, Kelly by departmental request, an emergency ordinance giving consent of the city of Cleveland to the county of Cuyahoga for the rehabilitation of the St. Clair Avenue Bridge over Doan Brook in the city of Cleveland. Authorize Director of Capital Projects to enter into an agreement and to apply for and accept an allocation of county motor vehicle license tax funds. Director.
Council President, this is a 100% county funded and managed project. Its value is about $1,850,000. The improvements include the rehabilitation of the existing stone arched bridge and slip lining, a new corrugated metal multi-place arch and reinforced concrete slab, and rehabilitating the existing stone wing walls and head walls and the entire slope restoration. So again, it's a 100% county funded project.
Great, thank you. Councilman Anthony Harrison, you're familiar with this project?
I am, Mr. President, and I am fully in support. The work has begun and they are making great progress. Ask the council for support.
Thank you, Councilman. Councilman Kevin Conwell, you're familiar with this project? Are there any further questions on 318-2020? Wait, Councilman Conwell, are you trying to communicate with us? You have to unmute yourself if you are. If there are no further questions, ordinance number 318-2020 stands approved. Ordinance number 319-2020. Council members Johnson, Kelly by departmental request, an emergency ordinance giving consent to the city of Cleveland to the Ohio Department of Transportation to upgrade guardrail and end treatments at various locations and authorizing other agreements. Director?
Yes, Council President, members of the committee, yeah, this is a 100% ODOT funded project. Its value is about $496,000. ODOT will be looking at 12 locations throughout the city of Cleveland. They're listed there in the legislative summary. This will be a guardrail. Safety improvements include upgrading the end treatments at the reference locations above. The improvements are part of a larger ODOT project to upgrade guardrail end treatments on all of the national highway system and routes within Cuyahoga County and Lake counties.
Great, thank you.
It's citywide.
Questions, comments on 319-2020? Hearing none, ordinance number 319-2020 stands approved. Moving to, thank you, Director.
Thank you, sir.
Moving to public health.
We're here.
Okay, I'm just getting it unbanded. So, Director, I have 4 ordinances, beginning with ordinance 459-2020 by Councilmembers Griffin and Kelly by departmental request. An emergency ordinance authorizing Director of Public Health to accept a grant from the Ohio Environmental Protection Agency for the 2020-21 financial assistance for the operation of the Division of Air Quality. Authorize the director to enter into one or more contracts for various services, equipment and supplies, and contracts with various agencies or entities to operate the Division of Air Quality. Determining the method of constructing, rehabilitating, renovating, replacing, or otherwise improving air monitoring sites and other similar structures on city-owned and city-leased property, and authorizing the director to enter into one or more contracts to construct the improvement and to design it. Director?
Great. Good morning. Good morning. Still, members of the, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee. This is the annual grant with the Ohio Environmental Protection Agency and our local air agency, which is the Division of Air Quality here at the Cleveland Department of Public Health. There are 3 sections in this division: enforcement, engineering, and field monitoring. We have approximately 21 locations throughout the city where we do measure certain pollutants. This is throughout the entire county. As you may recall, the Air Quality Division is, and this local air agency is required to do this work throughout the entirety of Cuyahoga County. The total grant amount is $2,488,915. This supports almost all of the staff in the Division of Air Quality, minus the local folks who are general fund, who are new in the last 3 years, and the acting commissioner. There is a local match of approximately $276,100, which is in the general revenue, which supports this program as well. There are approximately 35 staff people that support this work, and as I may have said, this has been a program of the Cleveland Department of Public Health since the 1970s. I welcome your questions.
Thank you. So we are acting pretty much as the agent for Ohio EPA for local air quality issues. And this is
we are the local air agency. Yes.
Yeah. So then this is the money to administer that program. It's something that we've been doing for decades now. Is that accurate?
Correct. Yes.
Councilman Blaine Griffin, Ordinance 459, 2020. Do you have comments on?
No, I support it wholeheartedly. I think it's a good program.
Great. Further questions, comments on 459, 2020? Hearing none, ordinance number 459, 2020 stands approved. Ordinance number 478, 2020, council members Griffin and Kelly by departmental request. An emergency ordinance authorizing Director of Public Health to enter into one or more contracts with the Center on Urban Poverty and Community Development at Case Western Reserve University to provide evaluation services for the Moms First program for a period of 1 year. Director?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee. We have had a long-standing contract and relationship with the Center on Urban Poverty and Community Development at Case to provide the evaluation work for the Moms First program. It has been enormous assets so that we can measure the impact of the program, inform program improvement processes and outcomes, and effectively meet the needs of families and infants in the city of Cleveland. They are also very helpful in supporting the presentations and annual reporting and quality improvement planning for this work. This is, again, a long-standing relationship with Case Western Reserve. This funding is partially the federal grant funds and also general revenue support, so that we were able to retain the level of evaluation services that we've received since, I believe, 2014.
Great.
I welcome your questions.
Thanks. The Center on Urban Poverty at Case and Moms First, they're just really two, tremendously good actors in the city that are doing, great things for us. So I'm looking forward to supporting this, but I'd like to hear from the Chairman of Public Health, Blaine Griffin.
Yep.
Good.
Mr. Chair, I'm good.
Thank you. Questions, comments on 478, 2020? Hearing on ordinance number 478, 2020 stands approved. Ordinance number 479, 2020, Councilmembers Griffin and Kelly by departmental request, an emergency ordinance authorizing Director of Public Health to enter into one or more contracts with Ronald K. White, doing business as a transparency program, to continue to provide fatherhood services to participants in the Moms First program for a period of 1 year. Director?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee. We're really excited about this component to the Moms First program work. thankfully, through the support of general revenue funds, we've been able to really invest in what we saw as a need here in Cleveland, to make sure that we had a fatherhood initiative as a part of the Moms First work. Since August of 2019, there have been 72 father partners that have enrolled in the program and are receiving health education in support of the program. The data shows that the entire work around healthy births and babies and families being able to thrive include fatherhood engagement. And so we're really excited about this. The goal of this entire initiative, it's also the transparency program, as we call it, is to engage and involve fathers-to-be and new fathers in prenatal care, childbirth events, infant care, and co-parenting. Once engaged, fathers are provided home visits, case management, coaching, and referrals to meet all of their needs. The contract amount is $80,000, and we have engaged the Ronald K. White transparency program, who has really been a huge asset in this work. So we're really quite excited about all of this. There will be 2 part-time employees who will be working on this, who'll be doing the outreach and intervention with the fathers and with the families. And so that is what these dollars support. I welcome your questions.
Thank you so much. I'd like to begin to see if the chair has any questions. Councilman Griffin?
No, sir, Mr. Chairman, that's good with me.
Thank you. Councilman Kevin Conwell?
Can you hear me?
Yep.
I am so happy about this. You know, I've been fighting for the fatherhood movement ever since I became a councilman, and I'm glad that she mentioned prenatal care. Through the chair to the director, are we doing boot camp for dads in the hospitals with the fathers also? Because you know, when the baby is first born, if he or she feels the power of a man, the power of the fatherhood, that's a great thing. Director?
Councilman, I don't know that it is specifically boot camp, but they do involve the fathers and partners very early on in the pregnancy, so that they are prepared for the prenatal care, the childbirth event, and then infant care and co-parenting. So if that is a specific intervention, I will connect with Lisa Matthews and Moms First to see if that is a component of this transparency program.
You know, director to the chair, when the baby is first born, if the father is in the delivery room and he cuts the umbilical cord, and that little girl feel the power of her dad holding her, and the father sees that right in the delivery room, man, that is powerful. That's father-child bonding, and that's where father-child bonding begins right there.
Mm-hmm.
So, but if anything I can do to help with funding, you know, I'm very connected downstate where we start the fatherhood initiative at. I'm there to help. I'm not here to complain. I'm here to help. We keep fathers and families together. That's where I'm at. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much,
Mr. President.
You've always been a champion of this issue, so thank you so much. Seeing no other hands up, ordinance number 479, 2020 stands approved. Ordinance number 480, 2020, Councilmembers Griffin and Kelly by departmental request, an emergency ordinance authorizing the purchase by one or more requirements contracts of indigent cremations of deceased residents for the Division of Health, Department of Public Health, for a period of 2 years with 2 one-year options to renew, exercisable by the Director of Public Health. Director?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee. Yeah, it is in the Ohio Revised Code, it is a requirement that municipality take on this responsibility for indigent cremation or indigent burial. And the health department proudly has done this for many, many, many years through our vital statistics area. This is a regular 2-year contract that we are going out to bid for. We've added some dollars to this as well because the State of Ohio Board of Embalmers and Funeral Directors have included a new licensing requirement for funeral homes, which requires some additional learnings and fees and continuing education. And so with this new requirement, we had to revise our fee structure, and so we'll be going out to bid for this service, I believe, later on this year. So we ask for your support for this program.
Thank you. Councilman Griffin, any comments on 480?
No, I support it. It's pretty routine, Mr. Chair.
Questions, comments on 480 2020? I do not see any, so ordinance number 480 2020 stands approved. Thank you, Director.
Thank you,
We're gonna
Mr.
move to
Chairman.
Public Works at this point.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman.
Good morning, and Councilman Johnson, just kind of chime in if there's any of these that you have any concerns with. Otherwise, we'll just keep on moving, okay? Ordinance number 255, 2020, Councilmembers Johnson and Kelly by departmental request, an emergency ordinance authorizing Director of Public Works to enter into one or more contracts with City Year to perform community service work and to collaborate with various nonprofit agencies.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The City of Cleveland has been sponsoring city work teams since 1999. The teams are corps members, as they're called, between the ages of 18 and 25. Each member participates in at least 11-month program, completes 1,700 hours of community service, and receives a $5,895 scholarship to be used for post-secondary education once they completed this program. The new contract is in the amount of $75,000. It goes from July 1st to 2020 through June 30th, 2021.
Okay. And we've been doing this, how long have we been in this relationship with City Year?
Mr. Chairman, since 1999.
Okay. Questions, comments on 255-20?
Mr. Chairman,
Councilman?
I'd just like to be added as a sponsor to this.
Certainly, if we can make that amendment. If there are no further questions, ordinance number 255-2020 stands approved. Ordinance number 257-2020, Councilmembers Johnson and Kelly by departmental request, an emergency ordinance authorizing Director of Public Works to enter into one or more contracts with Case Western Reserve University to provide a youth summer sports, nutrition, health, and life skills development program for 2020 under the National Youth Sports Program, co-sponsored by Case Western Reserve University. Director?
Thank you again, Mr. Chairman. This is what we call NYSP. It's the National Youth Sports Program. It's an instructional program that uses sports participation and competition as a vehicle to promote active, healthy lifestyles, enhance self-esteem, promote respect for oneself and others. It reinforces the importance of education. Also, it's a classroom work that is done at the college, and the students come from all over the city. The contract is an amount of $150,000. It runs from June 5th, 2019. I mean, it ends on July 5th, 2019, and this new contract will start after we do a contract with them. We are still in conversation with them about the program. I think I was asked last time about the program, and we will, before we do anything with agreement, we'll make sure that the program is up and running and full steam.
Great. We've been doing this for as long as I've been in council, if I'm not mistaken.
And this was being done since maybe about 2015, 16. I'm sorry, earlier than that, 2010, 2012. We've had this contract in place.
Okay. Councilman Johnson, do you have any questions on this? I know it's an important project to you. Any further questions on ordinance number 257, 2020? Hearing Hearing none, ordinance number 257, 2020 stands approved. Ordinance number 258, 2020, Councilmembers Johnson, Kelly by departmental request, an emergency ordinance authorizing Director of Public Works to enter into an agreement with the Neighborhood Leadership Institute to implement educational, recreational, and cultural programs in various school buildings and recreational facilities during evening hours, provide leadership training, and oversee summer tennis program. Director?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This is, some of the members may know that schools and neighborhood resources program is a community-based program to provide recreation and educational and cultural and family civic community activities in city areas considered service deficient and gaps in our service areas for recreation centers. The classes are offered at 8 of our schools. Again, we will be working with them as we work with the schools as they open to make sure our programs are in place. This contract is in an amount of $289,511. The contract term is from June 2020 to May 2021. They also give programs and workshops for our youth development workers, our 110 as we call them, in our rec centers, kids that we have on hire.
My audio is not working.
Mine? Oh, I'm sorry. That's it, Mr. Chairman.
Okay. And then just a housekeeping note, I want to have comments, questions on 258, 2020. I got a note, for whatever reason, my computer didn't show Councilman Casey and Conwell with their hands up before, so I'm going to start there. So I apologize about that. But let's kind of put things, let's kind of bring this together. Are there questions, comments on 258, 2020, or if you want to comment on the previous ordinance, 257, or change your vote, which is the Case Question Reserve Program? I'm going to begin with Councilman Casey since I rudely skipped him. Councilman?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Chairman, to the director, on 257, we're not sure that this is programs going forward, not or yet. We're not issuing permits, so we're not going to support 300 or 400 kids coming together under what we're going through with the COVID. So we're not 100% sure that this program is actually going to be up and running this year, are we?
Mr. Chairman, we are not. We had talked to them. They're talking about virtual programming. Okay. We need to have exactly what they're going to do, but the passage legislation allow us to have the money set aside if we're not going to pay everything. We don't have to. That's what I'm saying. Okay. If they can supply to us, that's what we'll do.
All right, and then we wouldn't be supportive, Mr. Chairman, to the director of if they decide to go forward with this. We're not going to be supportive of bringing that many kids together at one thing, knowing that we're under the COVID and all that other stuff.
Mr. Chairman, to the councilman, you're absolutely right.
Okay.
All of we've done with not issuing permits for our fields, I think we have to hold people that we contract with to the same standards as CDC standards. So yes, I agree. You're absolutely right.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, Director.
Thank you very much. Councilman Kevin Conwell.
Thank you, Mr. President. Let's move forward. Councilmember Brian Casey asked my question. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Councilman Joe Jones. You could unmute yourself.
Mr. Chairman, you said that there will be some house cleaning after, or miscellaneous after this with the director.
No, I didn't say that, but if you have something really brief.
Yeah, I do have some house cleaning, but I do want to talk about the last piece that the director talked about, in neighborhoods that don't have recreational facilities that are located to them. I do want to put on the director's radar screen that we've been getting a lot of phones for a lot of calls about playground area and need to have areas for people to play in over by Spear Avenue, by the Kennedy area, by what is it? In the Mount Pleasant community, off of Kinsman. And apparently they have a playground over there that has been there and still has playground equipment that's been there for over something like 20 some years or 30 some years, according to some of the residents. So they want to have some areas where they can have outlet for young people to play. So if you could get with me on that, that would be great. And then maybe some of those kind of programs can help in my neighborhood, my community.
Correct.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Councilman. Are there any further questions? If there are no further questions, we're gonna, and I apologize, technical difficulties. I'm assuming nobody changed their vote on 257 and 258, 2020 stand approved. Moving to ordinance number 349, 2020 as amended. Councilmembers Johnson and Kelly by departmental request. An emergency ordinance authorizing Director of Public Works to enter into a contract with Zscape LLC for citywide tree planting for a period of 1 year as a continuation of contract number MARC 2018-104. Director?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Passing this legislation will allow the Department of Public Works to expedite the planning by providing the current contract with Zscape LLC, time to cultivate and plant trees under the current contract, and have the trees ready for the 2020 fall season and the 2021 spring planting season. And this is with the $1 million funding approval that that was approved by this body in a 1-year period. And this would allow us to get our plantings done this fall and this next spring. And we ask that this be allowed to pass so we can get that started. We have to.
Thank you, Director. So, Director, this money is the of the different buckets. This is to add to the inventory of the tree canopy. Is that correct?
This is to add to the inventory. This is to find have the plant site and understand what kind of species to plant and get it planted.
So I'm just, it's fair to assume that, you know, upon approval of this, we will plant $1 million worth of trees in the fiscal year. Or in the year.
In the fall and in the spring.
Fall and the spring, $1 million worth of trees added to the canopy.
I'm sorry, adding to the canopy, adding to the places where we have gaps in our canopy. Yes.
Great. Thank you. Councilman Kerry McCormick.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I support this legislation. I've got a quick comment or question for the director. Chair to the director, I've reached out several times regarding establishing a conversation around alternative sidewalk replacements. So I look forward to hearing back on those emails. Haven't yet. But Chairman, the issue that I wanted to raise is adding trees are great, and I'm fully supportive of that. But we have been cutting down healthy trees in the city due to raised sidewalks. And what I am hoping that the conversation that we can have is other ways, other materials that can be used on sidewalks that are ADA legal and acceptable, that negate the need to cut down mature trees. All about planting new trees, but if we've got healthy canopy in the city, taking it down kind of defeats the purpose of planting new trees. So, Mr. Chairman, you know, I was recently in Washington, D.C., and they've employed, I don't know the term of the material, but it's essentially a hard, let's call it recycled rubber material that is fully ADA compliant, but allows the roots of the tree to grow and maneuver. So I just really hope that we have a conversation on council and in collaboration with the mayor's administration on other ways and other materials we can use for sidewalk replacement so that we are not cutting down healthy trees in the city of Cleveland.
Mr. Chairman, if I may, to the councilman, we are in the process now on West 116th Street of putting in different processes without cutting down some very large oak trees that are out there. It's off of Bel Air in Ward 11. And so we are doing that. I will get with you, and Director Spons and I will get with you sometime next week or this week and tell you what those methods are. And if you want to take a ride out there, you can see those methods being used.
Thank you. Chair to the director. I'm sorry, what was the
West
what is it called?
116th Street off of Bel Air Avenue in Ward 11.
And what's the type of methodology you're using out there?
Well, we're using some ramping. We use some half moons to go around the tree, the roots. They were very beautiful old oak trees. They're just too large. So we'll get you, if we have a conversation, we'll get you all of the prototypes that we're using. But if you want to take a ride out there, you can see it being done this already. Okay.
Thank you. And Chairman, I will take a look at those. The other issue though is sometimes the ramping and the curving doesn't work for some trees. So again, I really hope that we can have a conversation around other materials as well,
We can.
like that hard rubber that
Yeah.
Washington DC is using and otherwise.
Yes, sir. We can look at all those things. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Councilman. And Director, just so I'm clear, the trees that are subject of this ordinance are not part of the TDS trees. This is a separate line item to strictly add trees to the canopy, but this isn't paying for replacement of tree lawn trees. Is that accurate?
That is correct, sir.
Thank you. Councilman Joe Jones? We're having a problem with your audio, Councilman. You have to unmute yourself.
When you asked the director about DTS, I was confused with what the acronym, what we were referring to.
I should have said tree damage sidewalks. I might have gotten my initials messed up. Tree damage sidewalk program where we take them down as we're doing streets, but replace them the following year.
Mr. Chairman.
I meant to say, sorry.
Oh, I'm sorry. What did you say?
TDS, tree damage sidewalk.
TDS.
Okay.
Yes.
The question I have, Mr. Chairman, to the director is, do we already know exactly where we're going to plant these trees?
Mr. Chairman, to the councilman, we are locating those gaps, as we call them gaps, on those planting areas. We have located maybe about 700-800 of them now. We probably get about 2,000 locations that we will be planting. So we are in the process of locating them. What we have to do now is figure out what species fits that area and that tree lawn, and then have them planted so we can replant them in our areas.
And I hear you say species. Here's the problem that we're having in our community as it relates to the trees on the tree lawns in our area, in our community, is that those tree roots, and my colleague talked a little bit about that in terms of looking at other ways and means and materials on our sidewalks to deal with that issue. Our residents are getting a lot of damage from the tree roots to their water sewer lines. Now, of course, they're pushing up the sidewalks and they're trip hazards. And so when the citizens are looking to try to deal with the city with these trees, they're told they can't cut these trees down. That the city will not be liable or responsible for repairing the sidewalks because it's a trip hazard, and unless it's a process by which the city comes through and pave the street, and then at which time the city would, it's my understanding, cut out those tree roots and put that a new sidewalk in place. But if they're not getting their street paved, they're not getting that. And so they're really frustrated with the processes, and then the liability is all on the homeowner who didn't plant the tree on the tree lawn, and because of the roots and their damage to these people's personal property, what kind of discourse or what kind of recourse would they have to deal with the damage that's done to their properties based on the trees that the city has planted on the tree lawns? And that's one question. And then the second question, Mr. President, is after we deal with that issue, how do we and what kind of trees and will those trees that you're advocating to plant, will they present themselves as being a future problem for future Clevelanders who are having these issues, and some of them don't have the funds to even be able to deal with the issues because they're poor?
Director, before you answer, I know that trees are one of the biggest constituent service issues that we have, but if I could ask people, the tree damage sidewalk is a different bucket of funds. It's a different process. This is something that was approved to add to our diminishing tree canopy, to add new trees. So I would like to keep our questions there. We have 12 more ordinances to get through before we start the council meeting. So Director, if you could get with the councilman on the tree damage sidewalk, but answer his question about the trees that are being purchased.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, thank you. The last question was have an issue on trees, on the sidewalks moving forward. That's why we're looking at those areas, Councilman Jones, because we don't want to plant oak trees on 3-foot tree lawns, as was done, particularly like in your ward, right? So we are looking at what species, how high it grows, what's the diameter of the tree, so that we don't have this problem in the future.
And Mr. Chairman, we do have to look at how do we deal with the culpability of the city being responsible for the damage to the tree roots to the homeowner's property. That is an ongoing issue right now in my neighborhood.
Thank you, Councilman. So that's something that, Director, if you can get back, if you can get with the councilman on this one, but it's something that we have been struggling with for years. That's why the tree damage sidewalk program was created.
I will give it
Are there further questions on 394-2020 related to the money to purchase additional trees to add to the tree canopy? Hearing none, ordinance number 349-2028 stands approved. Ordinance number 352-2020, Councilmembers Johnson and Kelly by departmental request, an emergency ordinance authorize Director of Public Works to enter into one more concession agreements for the operation of first-class food and beverage services for the City Hall cafeteria in connection with renting the rotunda of City Hall and for marketing the rental of rotunda for catered events for a period not to exceed 3 years with 2 one-year options to renew exercisable by the Director of Public Works. Director?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Again, this would allow us to go out for a bid for our concessionaires to run our cafeteria in the basement, and also to rent the rotunda for special events, weddings, receptions, things of that nature that we rent out our rotunda for. It's a very nice event space, and we have, I think this may be the second or third contract that we've done with this renting this space out for this project. The new contract will run from January 2021 to December 31st, 2026 for the rotunda and the City Hall.
Okay, so we are going out to bid. There is, who's the current contractor?
Current contract is a company called Taste of Excellence.
Excellent, okay. But this will be an open bid.
This will be an open request for proposal, sir. And we will go through.
Questions on 352-2020?
Yes.
Councilman Bashir Jones?
Thank you so much, Mr. President. I really would like to make sure, I would love to stay abreast of this process of how do we assist with sending out RFPs and making sure that a lot of different organizations receive those RFPs and are able to turn in proposals for it. I just want to make sure that we are, heavily a part of that process.
If you could keep the councilman informed, Director?
I will do that for Councilman Jones.
Thank you, Director.
Thank you, sir.
Seeing no other hands or no other signals that you might want to comment, ordinance number 352-2020 stands approved. Ordinance number 373-2020, Councilmembers Johnson and Kelly by departmental request, an emergency ordinance authorizing Director of Public Works to enter into one or more professional consultants to provide security service at various indoor and outdoor recreational facilities, including but not limited to rec centers, pools, various surrounding playgrounds for a period not to exceed 1 year. Director?
Thank you. This is our annual contract, Mr. Chairman, that we go out to solicit proposals for our security at our recreation centers, our outdoor pools, and other playground areas that we deem necessary to have security at. Contract will run from September 1st, 2020 to August 31st of 2021. As you all know, we're not opening our outdoor pools at this time, but we will keep, in August, we will see where we're at with opening outdoor pools because of the CDC guidelines to opening pools. But we will be opening our rec centers on July 6th, and we will have security in those rec centers, and we'll be opening indoor pools at that time. So this is, again, annual allocation for off-duty sheriff deputies and police officers.
Thank you, Director. And do you know, will the Division of Police be doing the Parks, Pools, and Playground program this year?
Mr. Chairman, yes, they do, every year they do our park, give us a park patrol, yes.
So this will be a complement to the Parks, Pools, and
Compliment
Playground.
to that, yes.
Right, great. And this has been heard and recommended for passage. Questions, comments on 373-2020? Councilman
Mr. President.
I've got Mr. Jones, then who else? Councilman, you're up.
Thank you, Mr. President. President, to the director, when do we have a timeline yet of when basketball courts, the basketball rims will be back up?
Mr. Chairman, to the councilman, no, we do not. As of right now, for June and July, we have not decided to open up the basketball courts due to the CDC guidelines and the pandemic. It just too many people on a court that could cause us some safety and health issues.
But we are opening up the rec centers, though.
We are
the same issue.
Mr. Chairman, to the council, we will be following guidelines issued by the CDC on how many people could be in one space. Our programming will be different. We will not be having open gym. In the basketball, we would be doing skill training for our young people. We'll be doing exercises of that nature, but we will not be opening our courts, interior courts either, to open gym.
Mr. President, I understand that we have guidelines from the governor, but as I was driving down the street the other day, just yesterday, one of my guys in the community, looked at me with all sincerity and said, these young people are starting to get restless. And as we know, when young people get restless, bad things can happen. So I understand that we are dealing with what the governor has said, but I'm hoping that we can look at, we want to stay healthy. Don't get me wrong. I'm all for that, but also inactivity can be considered unhealthy as well. So there has to be a balance between the two, Mr. President and Director. And I'm hoping that we could, even if the governor is saying this or saying that, do we have the power to do what we need to do in the city of Cleveland if we chose to?
Mr. Chairman, to the councilman, we follow, the governor has opened up a lot of things that we haven't opened up because of the mandatory restrictions that you have to do to make sure that people are safe and healthy. We have taken the side of making sure that that this pandemic, which as you know, I'm not lecturing, telling you, this pandemic is still here. And the spread of this pandemic, the more you don't social distance and wear a mask, the more this happens. So we have looked at those areas where they asked us to open up. We're not doing organized baseball games this summer. We're not opening our outdoor pools. There are a lot of mandatory.
But Director, we are opening up casinos and we are opening up other things. So these things will be opening. You have amusement parks. We have things that are opening that brings money, right? We have things that are opening up that brings money.
Yes, sir.
So there are things that are opening up that have the same concerns that the governor has looked over and glossed over. So I don't want this to become a political conversation where the things that we benefit from in our community, we're not able to do, but others are able to go to the casino and spend their money. So I know, Director, you're doing the best that you can, and I know that I understand totally. I'm just concerned that this inactivity can cause some other issues. So, but Director, you've done a great job. I love you, man, but we have to figure out something.
I hear your concerns, Councilman, and I will talk to people about your concerns, okay?
Yes, yes, sir.
Councilman Anthony Hairston.
Thank you, Mr. President. Briefly, 2 points, just to echo Councilman Jones to the director and to other from the administration was listening. We don't want idle hands again to turn into something, traumatic here in our community. So finding a way, whether it's, I don't know, the level of creativity that we are exploring to get these young people back in some sort of physical activity in the community whatever I can do in my office to be supportive of working with other communities, stakeholders, organizations in the neighborhood to help support the city's recreation division at the outside parks and pools and playgrounds, please, without a doubt, let us know. We are willing to jump in to support whatever efforts that you all come up with. But again, being creative, I believe is going to be the key for us to get our young people and even some of our older generations back moving about within the communities. Second point, you mentioned that the indoor pools in the rec centers will be opening.
Mr. Chairman, that is correct. With restrictions, capacity restrictions, social distancing, and masks, not in the pool, but in the area.
Okay, all right, I wanted to be clear. So outdoor, no at the moment, but indoor accessibility to the pools will be allowed with strict distancing rules.
And capacity.
And capacity, okay. Just wanted to be clear that I heard that correctly. All right, thank you.
Thank you, Councilman. If there's nothing further, ordinance number 37320 stands approved. Ordinance number 37720, Councilmembers Conwell, Johnson, Brancatelli, and Kelly by departmental request. An emergency ordinance authorizing Director of Public Works to execute deeds of easement, granting the East Ohio Gas Company doing business as Dominion Energy Ohio certain easement rights in property located in Rockefeller Park along East Boulevard near East 105th Street, and declaring that the easement rights granted are not needed for public use. Director?
Yes, sir. I don't know. Commissioner DeRosa is on the call. He was.
I'm here, Director.
Thank you. Go ahead, Commissioner.
Yep. Mr. Chairman, this relates to Dominion's pipeline infrastructure replacement program that is going to replace 5,500 miles of natural gas lines in the city of Cleveland. And they are requesting 3 easements along East Boulevard in Rockefeller Park in order to install pipelines. And these new easements, we distributed the drawings to show you where they're located, will match up with existing Dominion easements already in place along East Boulevard. The pipelines are being relocated in conjunction with the reconstruction of East 105th Street, which is a city project that's currently underway. And we've confirmed that there's no conflicts with the new alignment. The easements will be sold at appraised value. The appraisals are underway. They were delayed a little bit because of COVID-19, but the easements will be sold at appraised value. And I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thank you. This is recommended by Committee on Development, Planning, Sustainability. Councilman Brancatelli, do you have comments on this?
Fully supportive. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Councilman Kevin Conwell, this is a Ward 9 project. Are you supportive? You can unmute or just nod your head.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah.
Okay, I fully support it. I have a question to Director Rosa. Are you in contact with the gas company?
Through the chairman of the councilman, yes, I spoke to the contact with Dominion, and I understand that they did have a conversation with you last week.
I'm there. I fully support this program. However, I want to give you a letter from a resident. Are you in the building or today, sir?
Yeah, I'm here in the building today, so I can come down to council and pick it up if you leave it at the front desk.
Well, you have a package from a resident saying about some work that East Ohio Gas Company did not complete her sidewalk on Herrick Road. And I want to give that to you, okay?
Yeah, pass that on and we'll take a look at it.
So you're coming down here?
I'll pick
I'm
it
here.
up from
I'm at the city.
Yep, me too.
All right, thank you very much. Thank you, Mr. President. I fully support it. Thank you very much.
Thank you. If there are no further questions, ordinance number 37720 stands approved. Thank you,
sir.
Public Utilities.
Thank you.
Each of these has been heard and recommended for passage by the Committee on Utilities. So I just wanted to say that before we got into these. So we have ordinance number 26120 as amended. Councilmembers Palenza, Casey, and Kelly by departmental request. An emergency ordinance authorizing Director of Public Utilities to renew the lease with City Rose Limited for certain property located at 743 East 140th Street for a term of 2 years with two option 2-year option to renew exercisable by Director of Public Utilities for the public purpose of operating the Division of Cleveland Public Power's East Side Service Center at 743 East 140th Street. Director?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This is a lease renewal for CPP's East Side Service Center located on 753 East 140th Street. I know Commissioner DeRosa is on the call as well. He had been looking for property to purchase and or build for the last several years. He has been unsuccessful. Therefore, we're asking for this 2-year lease so that we may be able to maintain property to build and or purchase. With that being said, we'll continue, and it is our hope that after 2 years, we'll have a new home.
Thank you. Councilman Casey?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Chairman, I just want to make sure that the amendment does state that it's for a 2-year term, and then the 2-year option to renew is by legislative authority as opposed to exercisable by the
The option
director.
may not be exercised without additional legislative authority.
Okay. Aside from that, we had a robust discussion about this yesterday, Mr. President, and there is the concern of moving forward with this piece of property after the 2 years. Cleveland Public Power has been around for over 100 years, and we believe that it should finally have its own home and not lease or rent. So it's something that we're going to keep an eye on over the next 2 years. But it was supported and passed out of utilities. Thank you.
Great, thank you. Councilman Conwell, or excuse me, Councilman Plenzick, this is in Ward 8. Are you supportive?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, I am, and Councilman Casey was correct in his explanation. So we're going to be working with the administration. Thank you.
Thank you. Further questions, comments on 261-2020? Seeing, hearing none, ordinance number 261-2020 stands approved. Ordinance number 370-2020, council members Kays and Kelly by departmental request. An emergency ordinance authorizing Director of Public Utilities to enter into one or more contracts with Itron Incorporated for professional services necessary to provide automatic meter reading services, including but not limited to acquiring license and recommending, integrating, and installing upgrades to the existing system and providing hardware and software maintenance, and to enter into contracts for the various written standard purchase and requirement contracts with Itron for the purchase of meters and related equipment and services and labor and materials to provide modifications to existing equipment for a period of 2 years with a 1-year option to renew, exercisable by additional legislative authority. Director.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Itron is currently the provider of Cleveland's AMR system. It is a proprietary system. This request would include the continuation of the current hardware and software that we have currently. And then it would also look at meter reading hardware and software licensing that is required to replace some of the outdated end-of-life, useful life equipment that is out of support. So this is a system that is been installed since 2012, and it is our system, and we have to continue to upgrade and keep it running, and it's been successful thus far.
Great, thank you. Councilman Casey?
Mr. Chairman, fully vetted and recommended for passage out of utilities.
Thank you. Questions, comments on 370-2020? Hearing none, ordinance number 370-2020 stands approved. Ordinance number 372-2020. Councilmembers Casey and Kelly by departmental request. An emergency ordinance determining the method of making the public improvement of creating and installing building identification signs at up to 12 water treatment plants in various multi-building secondary sites, and authorize Director of Public Utilities to enter into one or more public improvement contracts for the making of the improvement. Director?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman. CWD owns and operates, maintains 4 water treatment plants, booster pump stations, elevated water tanks, and so forth. During a recent inspection of the fire marshal, it was determined that we need to install and fabricate signs to make sure that we meet the building fire code. So that is the gist of this piece of legislation. It is approximately $300,000. And this legislation will lead to one or more improvement contracts, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you very much. Councilman Casey, this was heard and recommended for approval.
Fully vetted and recommended for passage out of utilities.
Thank you. Questions, comments on 372, 2020? Hearing none, ordinance number 372, 2020 stands approved. Ordinance number 376, 2020, council members Casey and Kelly by department request, an emergency ordinance authorizing the purchase by one or more requirement contracts of various types of electrical test equipment and labor and materials necessary to maintain and repair electrical test equipment, including training when necessary for the Division of Cleveland Public Power, Department of Public Utilities, for a period of 2 years, with 2 one-year options to renew, the first of which is exercise of additional legislative authority. Director?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman. This legislation will authorize CPP to enter into one or more contracts for testing equipment. This testing equipment is for compliance purposes with NERC, FERC, PJM, as outlined, and also compliance with safety. The anticipated cost is about $300,000 a year, and then again, this legislation will lead to a requirement contract up to 2 years with 2 one-year options.
Thank you, Chairman Casey.
Mr. President, fully vetted and recommended for passage out of utilities.
Thank you. Any further questions on 376, 2020? Councilman Joe Jones. If you could unmute yourself, please.
I keep forgetting about that. Thank you, Mr. President. We had a discussion in the Utilities Committee as it relates to minority contracts, and on all of these, the city has a minority requirement. And in all of these contracts, what's really weird is the fact that the bulk of them, they're not meeting the minority contract set aside rules that this council has established years ago. And then we're always constantly told, even with contracts that we have for over 100 years with some people, that they can't hire one minority, not one minority over 100 years to work for them, even though they may not be in the state and they received the contract. Maybe they're not even in the city and they received the contract, but over 100 years of having a contract, you can't meet the city requirements for minority participation. Mr. Chairman, Mr. President, I really have a problem with that. And then, you know, what makes it equally sad is the fact that, I get some of my colleagues want to blow this off. This is a real serious issue. It's one of the problems that we're having in our neighborhoods now with people who have resources and people who don't. And so, and part of that, and part of the minority set aside program was set up so that you can have minorities participate in the city contracts. But if we're going to talk about equity and fairness, we need to start with ourselves right now as a city in hiring minorities and participation as it relates to these contracts. And Mr. Chairman, I've seen quite a bit of them go to the side and haven't raised hell about it. But I do want to let you know that this is just something that is just the whole point of us fighting those many years ago to put this in place, and not just to see it just merely dismissed without discussion, to me is horrible. It goes against the very foundation of our council.
Thank you. Director, do you have any comments on that?
Well, just real quickly and briefly, we did talk about this yesterday, and the councilman does understand that this is highly specialized testing type of equipment and does not lend itself to subcontracting. So certainly understand his concern. It's been ongoing for a long time. We have to put certain things in place to obviously be able to do what he's talking about, but I certainly understand this point.
But and that's and Mr. President, and that's fine, and I appreciate the director, and I don't want to, I'm not here to badger anybody. I'm just here to bring out that we set these certain rules in place so that we can get minority participation. And in this particular instance, it's not just only on this, but it's on other areas where we can have minority participation and we don't have it in there. So it's not just only on this end of it, but it's also on the other end as well, where we should be getting minority participation, and we don't have it on these contracts. And I would like to see, Mr. President, that we really take a real serious effort as a whole to really enforce the rules that have been put in play. And when we do that, then we won't have people on the outside looking in and saying, hey, can I participate? But there's no system set up for it. And that's what this whole system is set up, is to get minorities involved and engaged in the process. And so I don't even know, Mr. Chairman, if we need to take another step as a system where we are actively reaching out to recruit minority participation in Cleveland contracts.
Duly noted.
Thank you very much, Councilman Jones.
Thank you, Mr. President. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
There are no further questions. Ordinance number 376, 2020 stands approved. Ordinance number 346, 2020, Councilmembers Kays and Kelly by departmental request. An emergency ordinance authorizing Director of Public Utilities to enter into one or more agreements with the Northeast Ohio Regional Sewer District to replace a water main in Brecksville Road under Chippewa Creek in the city of Brecksville, and the design and main replacement, and to provide a prepayment or reimbursement for the city share of the improvement. Director?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman. This ordinance will authorize the Division of Water to prepay and/or reimburse Northeast Regional Sewer District for lowering a 12-inch main that was installed back in 1929. And this is part of the Ohio stormwater program that Regional has. And this is just allowing them to do the work. And this is just a portion of the water work, which is approximately $330,000 for reimbursement to Regional for doing that work.
Thank you, Councilman. Chairman Brian Casey, this has been vetted by your committee.
Yes, fully vetted and recommended for passage.
Questions, comments on 4620? Hearing on 4620 stands
Mr.
approved.
Chairman.
Councilman McCormick?
Mr. Chairman. Yeah, just a logistics. I'm getting text messages that there's no audio coming through on TV 20. So I just wanted to bring that to your attention.
Okay, if the clerk's office could fix that. Well, hey, we got the Department of Public Utilities right with us now. Great. Can we make sure that gets, make sure it's being broadcast on YouTube TV as well? Because we're going to do that. All right, Director, do you?
Yes.
Can somebody be on that?
The audio is working.
Okay.
The audio is working on TV 20.
Thank you. Ordinance number 4720, Councilmembers Casey, Kelly by department request. An emergency ordinance authorizing Director of Public Utilities to enter into one or more contracts without competitive bidding to Thermo Electron North American LLC, a part of Thermo Fisher Scientific, for the purchase of items and services required to convert the existing liquid chromatograph into a tandem mass spectrometer, including software and other necessary appurtenances, training, maintenance for a period of 3 years, with 1-year options to renew the maintenance, exercisable by the Director of Public Utilities. Director?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman. The Division of Water is seeking a ordinance authority to enter into a direct award for Thermo Fisher for the purchase of Cleveland Water's existing liquid chromatography machine that will add on to the mass spectrometer for high analysis and drinking water. So just in short, this is laboratory testing equipment. We do a variety of tests, 160,000 tests annually. And so this allows us to continue to make adjustments, comply with EPA regulations as it relates to regulated and unregulated contaminants. And so that's it in a short. Commissioner McGevitz is here to get into detail if you want about PFAS, PFOS, and all of those things if desired.
No, I just want a base level understanding, Commissioner. This is laboratory equipment for the quality of drinking water.
Exactly right. PFAS is a hot topic in the water industry now, and this will allow us to do that kind of testing.
Testing for that. Thank you. Chairman Casey. Your mic is off, but I'm going to assume you said it's been fully vetted and you recommend support.
About that, I'm just glad that this is exercisable. I'm just glad this is exercisable by the director, because if I don't have to say chromatograph one more time, we'd be good. But yes, it was fully vetted by utilities yesterday and recommended for passage.
Great, thank you. Ordinance number 47, 2020 stands approved. Ordinance number 48, 2020, Councilmembers Casey and Kelly by department request an emergency ordinance authorizing Director of Public Utilities. Text says the first option to renew contract number CTNF 2019-2 with Pinckney Enterprises LLC, doing business as Take a Break Quick Catering to provide first-class food and beverage service at the Carl B. Stokes facility. Director?
Yeah, thank you. The department is requesting additional authority to continue the concession agreement, which
You're happy with them?
consists of our food beverage services. It was bid, food taste tests were done, great food and a great job by them. So we are asking that we renew the second option to renew.
Right. Councilman Casey, we're good?
We're good.
Questions, comments on 48-2020? Hearing, seeing none, ordinance number 48-2020 stands approved. Ordinance number 49-2020, Councilmembers Casey and Kelly by departmental request. An emergency ordinance authorizing Director of Public Utilities to enter into one or more agreements with CHN Housing Partners, Inc., or no Inc., scratch that, partners, to administer energy, water, sewer conservation services to low-income homeowners for the Division of Water, Water Pollution Control, and Cleveland Public Power, Department of Public Utilities, for a period of 1 year, with 1 year option to renew, exercisable by the Director of Public Utilities. Director?
Thank you. CHN Housing Partners, formerly known as CHN Network, has been partnering with the city for many, many years. They have 30 years of experience. The purpose of the program is to provide low-income area customers. And some of the things we're talking about is plumbing, HVAC, electric. I don't know if Kate Russell is on. She spoke a little bit yesterday about some of the programs. I know that there was some question about specific ward information, and we're supposed to be gathering that information and getting that to our chairman. So if Kate is there with the president's indulgence.
Certainly.
If she is not, then we fully support, and we've had great success and obviously recommended highly.
Yes, and CHN is also responsive if you reach out to them directly.
Absolutely.
Councilman Casey is
Fully vetted and recommended for passage.
questions, comments on 49-20? Seeing and hearing none, ordinance number 49-20 stands approved. Ordinance number 490-20, Councilmembers Casey and Kelly by departmental request. An emergency ordinance authorized Director of Public Utilities to enter into a utilities repair agreement with the County of Cuyahoga to pay or reimburse directly related costs incurred by the county for the repair of a storm and sanitary sewer lines on an as-needed basis for a period not to exceed 2 years, with one option to renew for an additional 1 year period, exercisable by the Director of Public Utilities. Director?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. President. Upon request, Cuyahoga County will repair storm and/or sanitary sewer in the public right-of-way and easements, including storm and sanitary services and connections and laterals. And so a lot of times when we're out there doing breaks and if something like that happens, it may be a little bit too complex for the water department or the crew to repair. And so it's nice to have those guys come. They respond quickly because time is of the essence when that water is running out there. So we certainly support and recommend the agreement.
Great, thank you. Councilman Casey?
Fully support and recommended for passage.
Any further questions, comments on 490-2020? Hearing and seeing none, ordinance number 490-2020 stands approved. If there's nothing for the good of the order, this will conclude Committee of the Whole. Kim, how long do we need? 20 minutes. If we could sign back in at 1:20, and you'll get an email for sign-in for the full council meeting. If there is nothing further, this committee is adjourned. Thank you all very much for your attendance and your participation.
Thank you.